Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our wrestling podcast. So, without further ado, the following podcast is scheduled for one fall, and today's topic, the legacy of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
And Austin was actually a decent football player, receiving scholarships to Wharton Junior College and the University of North Texas as he went up. However,
As well.
What?
He was also a discus thrower.
Oh, that's fucking great, cuz. God damn it. That's fucking beautiful.
When I tune into a wrestling podcast, I'm like, God, I hope they talk about Stone Cold's discus throwing.
Oh, why not?
Ability.
That blonde hair just fucking in the wind as he's fucking spinning
Oh,
around.
for fuck's sake. Dave, keep going. You gotta be stronger.
I'm trying.
You're a tough guy. You gotta be fucking stronger. Like,
So
he's a strong force. He's like a tornado. He's gonna fucking like
Stone Cold's hair when he's throwing
shit. You gotta fucking say focus.
All right. Okay. 1989. Austin.
I'm one to talk. I'm the one that gets off task all the time. And here I am trying to steer this fucking ship. This is bad. Guys, we're going to hit the iceberg straight up. I'm just letting you know.
I am the iceberg.
If you're going to put me in charge of the ship, I'm going to run right into the iceberg.
Welcome to the O.W.P. This is our wrestling podcast. This is Dave along with Jess.
This is Jess. You're right.
Yeah, there you go. And Cuz.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, God.
That's right.
I can't wait.
And with that, guys, hit us up on Instagram and have a good night.
I can't wait till this is fucking over.
God damn it.
Jesus
This is going to be
Christ.
bad. This is really going to be bad.
Oh, it's fucking stupid. All right. Giving you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. And now on to our topic today. Cuz, you want to take it away, you freak?
The greatest of all time, Stone Cold Steve Austin. This is my legacy, son.
God
you
damn
go.
it. This is fucking
Gotta
so
do it,
dumb. I can't even believe this. As always, you can reach us via Instagram at O.W.P.19, SoundCloud at Our Wrestling Podcast, YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel, or do the easy thing, download WrestlePost, an app at no charge to you, and join us along with other great podcasts of the day. I'm not sure if I'm mad at Cuz or if I'm just mad at myself right now about this topic because I have to try to outline these topics, and some are tougher than others, but this is by far the toughest outline I've ever had to do, and I already hate it. And the fact that Cuz loves it makes me hate it even more. So, Cuz, what do you have to say about that and Stone Cold in general?
I think you're just, jealous that your favorite bald hero, Kurt Angle, isn't considered one of the biggest.
Well, and let's be clear.
When it happens, it'll happen.
Go ahead,
okay,
go ahead.
Yeah.
This episode's already going to be 9 hours long, for the love of God. We just have to clear up real quick that we are all three are pretty big Stone Cold fans.
Yes.
So we just it's Cuz's favorite, for those of you who haven't picked up on that. Like,
He's
Hulk
already
Hogan is
jizzed
my
out.
favorite. Stone Cold is Cuz's favorite. Kurt Angle is Dave's favorite, to make it all simple.
Cuz blew his wad on the intro. It's over.
Yeah, Cuz has been fucking secretly plotting this episode for a long time. And
Well,
did.
like we said, you're gobbling Hogan's dick, gobbling my dick brother, and I'm gobbling Austin's dick.
I don't even want to do a Hogan episode. So see, I
That's
don't
true.
understand. Like, I don't understand the attack at this point.
because no one wants to hear a Hogan episode. That's why.
Really? Yeah, that's sure. Yeah.
We're talking we're doing parts of his biography in every episode we do, according
That's
to
right.
everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean.
So Hogan this all should be with the subtitle of Hogan's Legacy. every episode.
Yeah, every episode should be. Well, not really so much Austin, because really he didn't really cross
That's
paths
true.
with Hogan
That's
there.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Except for the one time he stunned him. A couple times he
Hey,
stunned him.
Cuz, quit being an asshole. Seriously.
Well,
God.
if you're the fan of the toughest SOB, you kind of have to be.
Oh
an
God,
asshole.
let's get this.
Oh my God. Okay, let's just go.
Yeah, I'll
Jesus.
do it
All
all
right.
day.
What are we doing?
All day.
All right. Shut up. Let me set it up.
Oh, you
All
got a
right.
stunner in your fucking site.
Born in Austin, Texas, having three brothers, one younger sister,
Wait,
part
who
of a
was?
divorced family.
Who was born?
His name was actually what? Anybody know? That's
Mr.
what I was getting
Anderson.
to. You fucking interrupted me, cuz.
Mr.
God damn it.
Anderson.
Philip Johnson.
What?
Steve
That's
Anderson.
his name.
He when Steve Austin, when his mom divorced and remarried, he took on his stepfather's last name of
Williams.
what?
Of
Williams.
Frank Stafford.
Oh, God.
Dr.
Yeah,
Death Williams.
It's that's why it gets changed, but it
Yes.
is Steve Williams, and Austin was actually a decent football player, receiving scholarships to Wharton Junior College and the University of North Texas as he went up. However,
Discus thrower as well.
What?
He was also a discus thrower.
Oh, that's fucking great, cuz. God damn it, that's fucking beautiful.
When I tune into wrestling podcasts, I'm like, God, I hope they talk about Stone Cold's discus throwing.
Oh, why not?
fucking ability.
That blonde hair just fucking in the wind as he's fucking spinning
Oh,
around.
for fuck's sake, Dave, keep going. Just you gotta be stronger.
I'm trying.
You're a tough guy. You gotta be fucking stronger. Like he's a strong force. He's like a tornado. He's gonna fucking like
Stone
he's
Cold's
gonna
hair
uproot
when he's
some
throwing
shit. You gotta fucking
he's
say
throwing that-
focus.
All right, okay,
Go ahead, I'll let you
1989,
go.
Austin.
I'm one to talk. I'm the one that gets off task all the time, and here I am trying to steer this fucking ship. This is bad, guys. We're gonna hit the iceberg straight up. I'm just letting you
Well,
know.
I am
If
the
you put-
iceberg.
If you're gonna put me in charge of the ship, I'm gonna run right into the iceberg.
But go
Oh,
ahead.
God.
Go ahead.
It's a fucking train wreck. Okay, so in 1989, Austin decides he actually wants to become a professional wrestler. He joins Chris Adams' school for wrestling, and he's actually wrestling at about $40 a night to start with that name of Steve Williams. His name was changed to Austin by Memphis booker Dutch Mantell because there was already, as Cuz already said, because he can't hold his wad, a Dr. Death Steve Williams out there, right? Ventures in WCCW, the USWA, and CWA were all short stints until he signed with WCW in 91. Anything you want to add to that bullshit before we move on to WCW?
I'm not trying to. We're just trying to keep this in a decent time. We're trying
Yeah.
to keep this podcast within a 24-hour limit. So,
Oh my God.
it's not gonna be longer than 24 hours. But I mean, I don't want to understate the way he came up in Texas. Obviously, that's his roots and stuff. And Gentleman Chris
Sure.
Adams was he. In his book, he doesn't say great things. Gentleman Chris Adams, has good qualities about himself and bad qualities. And he's since passed, I believe. Gentleman Chris Adams. Fuck, I hope he has because I just pulled that shit out of my ass. I'm like,
gonna
I
get
think
you.
he died. And took 20 people with him. It was a weird bank robbery. I don't know what happened, but yeah. So Chris Adams was a huge point in getting him in there. But I think there was like personal animosity at times between him and Chris Adams. But I mean, at the same time, Austin always credits him for giving him his start and really seeing something in him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. So we're into WCW fairly quickly by this storyboard, but like it wasn't crazy fast. 1991 is where Austin pretty much comes in, and he starts working with the Dangerous Alliance very quickly. Not much to really worry about there, but Austin wins his first title very quickly.
Chris Adams did die. Woo!
Oh, thank God.
Woo! I'm so glad I was right.
Thank God for that. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm pretty factual at this point.
There you go. So Austin wins his first title very quickly, defeating Bobby Eaton for the TV title on June 3rd of said year 91, and he joins the Dangerous Alliance soon after that.
And I want to say on that, I know you're going to kick it to me, and I rudely interrupted you.
Yeah, I want you to discuss it briefly.
Cuz sent me a text that said, what would be really fun in this episode if we both just cut Dave the fuck off like every 20 seconds. And I said, sounds good. See you there.
Sounds good.
So that's actually when I started watching WCW in 1991 is when I started watching WCW, which is amazing because it was such fucking hot garbage. But I grew up liking Hogan and all that stuff. And as you're a child, you get attracted to the characters. You don't really know what work rate means or who's a good wrestler and who's not. You just know good characters and they hook you in. But at an early age, I kind of realized that I liked wrestling for wrestling. You could tell who was a good pro wrestler in there. And I was really attracted to Steve Austin as far as his in-ring work is concerned, because I felt that, man, this guy's really good. Like, he had long blonde hair and he wore the most hideous trunks though. Like his WCW trunks, they weren't like the underwear style. They were like the kind of like the Speedos, like where it kind of, I don't know what you call that. not down to your knees, but you know what I mean? It wasn't like underwear style. It was like a little bit longer than that, and like they were awful. Like they were like, it was like this bunch of shapes on them, like squares and triangles and all that stuff, and they were all different colors. It was ugly as shit. Like he needed major help with his wardrobe. But I really liked him. Like Joe and I would watch him wrestle. We're like, God, the Austin guy's really good. Actually, we just liked watching him wrestle. We liked the heel that he played, and even though he was young and green-ish, like we just liked him a lot. And then he won the TV title, and Bobby Eaton's a really, really good worker. So they had a pretty good match. And so to see some young guy come into WCW who was trying to rebuild itself in 91, it was really trying to like, shake the funk of, like Flair leaving and all that stuff. And, I think Austin came in right before that, like right before Flair left or got fired. So he was part of that whole like collapse / rebuilding of WCW. So like Dave said, then he ran into Paul Heyman right after that, which is perfect. Great timing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we're going to get into that for sure. So just to kind of tally that title all the way through, while he was in the Alliance, he would lose that TV title to the man Barry Windham in April of 92, but then he would win it back in May of that same year. Then we move on to 93, where we get into where I personally find Austin very charismatic and a lot of fun. The Hollywood Blondes.
Well,
and the
hang on.
Stable.
Sorry, I know that was a big introduction, but the Dangerous Alliance should not be understated because
agreed. Yeah.
When WCW was dying in 91, at the end of 91, Paul Heyman convinced people backstage, like, look, he was called Paulie Dangerously. That was his name in WCW.
Yeah.
And he was like, let me fucking like do some creative and let me manage a faction. Let me do all this. So WCW signed Ravishing Rick Rude in October of 91, and Paul Heyman became his manager right away with Medusa, who was also another big piece of the puzzle. Medusa, for those of people who don't know, she was a very famous female wrestler before female wrestling was even really big. But Medusa could really go. She trained with men. She really knew how to fight to a certain extent. She was just a real tomboy, but she was like hot for wrestling standards, And I'm not saying she's not hot in general, but you know what I mean by that. Like, so you see her and you're just like, God, like she's athletic and she can wrestle. Oh, what a dream, And so it was really cool to see her with Heyman. So she was sort of like the woman muscle, like in that kind of China before she was China, but she wasn't nearly China size, but she could go with men and she wasn't afraid of them. So having her in that group and Rick Rude started like this revolution, like to where Heyman's like, I'm going to make this cool heel stable. And he got Bobby Eaton, Larry Zbyszko, and Arn Anderson to jump in there. And they were kind of like, I don't want to say a poor man's Horseman because that's not fair, because they were just the next big supergroup after the Horsemen basically in WCW. Because
they didn't really resemble the Horsemen at all.
Yeah,
really.
WCW just wanted to try and keep rehash the Horsemen, and then after they fired Flair, they were just like, well, what do we do? We need a heel faction, right? WCW was kind of always known for that, so Heyman was perfect, and the Dangerous Alliance was really cool, and they only lasted like 8 months or something like that. It really wasn't that long, but they really like that 8 months revived WCW because Ricky the Dragon Steamboat came back, and like WCW kind of became kind of cool. Jushin Liger, they introduced their cruiserweight division. Brian Pillman and Liger had great matches. So that, to me, I'm fond of that short 8 month span because I really remember the Dangerous Alliance and then the cruiserweight division. It all kind of came hand in hand, and a lot of that was because Paul Heyman was creating good shit in the back, and people were sort of feeding off his energy and all that. And Wrestle War 92, for those of you who haven't, go to the network or go to YouTube and type in Wrestle War 1992 and watch the main event War Games match. Sting Squadron versus the Dangerous Alliance is probably the best War Games match there's ever been. God, Austin bled like a pig, like in that match. And like, it was so good. Go back and watch that match. And that was, again, Wrestle War 92, WCW, the Dangerous Alliance versus Sting Squadron. Excellent match. I mean, it's probably the best War Games match they've ever had.
And then 2 wrestlers to go, and then we hit the match beyond, where it then becomes strictly who will quit. Understand me?
Hey, mate, they can use that as a weapon. Remember, no disqualification. My gosh.
Look at this.
And I really think that you gave it its due there, Jess. So no pun intended. That was, the Dangerous Alliance needs its 15 minutes, right?
It does. I like how Arn Anderson even stated, and this is just gonna, play back on, us, Jess, you specifically making fun of Jim Herd.
No, I don't.
How Arn Anderson said in an interview, that they were one of the greatest groups, as far as talent wise, but that they never became anything huge because of incompetent bookers. And he, mentions Jim Herd, Kip Allen, and Bill Watts.
Fantastic.
So it just makes me laugh especially when I hear Jim Herd. I die every time because I think of the money.
The
We'll
money.
make the monies.
We don't want money. We're not going to make them good.
And then
We don't want
legitimately,
money.
like, yeah, I mean, if WCW didn't have this injection of youth at the late 91, Austin was a big part of that.
They
and
would have
getting
died.
part of the Dangerous Alliance. Like, that's a big deal right then and there. I mean, the TV title was a big deal back then, back in the early 90s, titles meant something. And so, like, for Austin to get put on, he's a young guy. He gets with the Dangerous Alliance. Paulie liked him then. So
yes,
their relationship will continue. But go on, Dave. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no worries. And that's why he's a 2-time TV champion at that point. And we roll into 93 with the Hollywood Blondes and the Stud Stable. And like I said, I love this early part of Austin's career. I always wonder what it could have been because things kind of got in the way, injuries and other items. But Austin forms a tag team with Brian Pillman, who is the Hollywood Blondes.
He was kind of forced because after the Dangerous Alliance sort of fell apart, Dusty, I want to say, became the booker for a bit. Yeah. And he was just like, when am I going to get my shot? You promised me a singles run. And then he was just like, no, baby, we're gonna put you with Oz. We're gonna put you with Oz, baby, and you.
Oh God!
You're gonna fight at Super Bowl
in our archives, ladies and gentlemen,
for every championship, baby, and you guys are gonna unify the belts, and it's gonna be you and Oz, and we're gonna fire everybody else. Okay, thanks, Dusty. So no, technically, really, what he said was, we like you where you're at, or something like that. Austin does a good impersonation, like, no, baby, we like it where you're at right now. You're gonna stay where you're at, and so he got put with Pillman, and it was just a shit pairing. He was like, we're gonna put you with Brian Pillman. Just you guys are really talented. You guys are gonna do stuff. You guys are gonna, zip and zap and dippity dap and do all this stuff. And so Austin was pissed off. And so, but Pillman was the positive guy. And he's like, dude, let's make this work. Like, let's do this. Let's get matching gear. Let's do that. Let's be like from Hollywood. And Pillman, he even gives Pillman credit. Like, Pillman was positive in that. Pillman's like, dude, we could fucking, like, we're really talented. Both of us are. So we have no problem. Like, we can do this. So they came up with the Hollywood Blonde gimmicks, and they did like the mimic when they pantomimed the filming,
the camera, the camera.
Yeah, they would beat up prelims, and they'd film the pain on their prelims face and all that stuff, and they're beating prelims up and all that, and like they made it their own, and they got matching vests and matching tights and all that stuff. Their music was badass, and they actually did really well, which is funny because they almost did so well to where the bookers were like, well, fuck, we didn't think you're going to get over, which is unfortunate because that's how WCW was, and they actually won the tag titles. I'm sure Dave's going to cover that right now.
Yeah, but, that's right where we're at. In March of 93, the Blondes would actually defeat Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas and hold those titles for 5 months. The reason why I say it's a wonder of what could have been, Jess, because they held those titles, but there was an injury due to Pillman coming up, right? So I wanted to discuss, you kind of already discussed the chemistries of the Blondes, but also what brought them to a quick end. Just talk about that and where those titles finally fall off their waist.
I think, it was the injury from Pillman. I think that's what did it. WCW was just moving so fast. They were changing fucking bookers and top regimes like every 6 months, literally 6 months to a year. There was someone new in charge, someone with a new executive vice president or something like that, or a new head booker. And so it sucked. So basically Pillman got injured. I want to say Steve Regal subbed in, and they lost to the Horsemen, Arn Anderson and Paul Roma, of all people. Yeah. And so they were supposed to lose to the beat the Hollywood Blondes, but Pillman got injured, but they still wanted to take the belts off him, so they put Steven Regal in there, and Steve Regal and Steve Austin lost the tag titles to Roma and Anderson.
Weird. That's the other answer. Why did that happen? Because this is WCW.
We want to make the monies. So and after that, it sucked because then they were going to be like, okay, let's make Austin a singles guy.
Yeah, so this is where he takes his solo run. He joins the Stud Stable, ran by Colonel Parker. Austin betrays Pillman in this time frame. He beats him at Clash of the Champions.
Great match, by the way. Go back and see that.
Really great match. Yeah, check that out for sure. And then they put him right in a U.S. title run. He actually defeats Dustin Rhodes in a 2 out of 3 falls match at Starrcade in December of 93. And he holds that until August of 94. So it's a pretty good run. You're getting close to a year on that, losing to Steamboat, and what everyone says is also a really great match. So,
that one, it was Steamboat at Clash of the Champions, and I want to say, what month did you say that was?
August of 94.
I want to say that was the same show that Hogan and Flair had their rematch on, if I'm just thinking off memory.
Probably, yeah.
Hogan beat Flair at Bash at the Beach, and then after that next Clash of the Champions, they had a rematch, and I want to say that's when, and that is an excellent match. Go back and watch that. It's really excellent. Steve, I'm glad as a Steve Austin fan. I was just glad when they pushed him in WCW. But looking back, and I think during the period, I knew it deep down inside, but I didn't want to admit it, that they were just trying to like make it work. They put the U.S. title on him, and he was a great U.S. champion. But they were looking, especially when they hired Hulk and Bischoff took over, it was more of like God, we need characters, we need people that are going to attract the casual viewers. We need this, we need that. So unfortunately,
we need a little Hulkster magic. Yeah.
Yeah. The old WCW of, we're just going to push good workers is great. When you think back on it, right? You think of the NWA, you think of WCW, and it's real wrestling. But what Vince proved early on, good or bad, is that the flash and the characters get the attention of the casual viewer, which when you get casual viewers, you make a lot of money. It's like, so that's what Vince did. And so WCW, they were stuck in that purgatory of just trying to copy Vince and then swearing they weren't going to copy him. And then they were going to copy him and then swearing. And then Bischoff came along and he was like a different Vince where he didn't want to copy Vince per se, but he wanted to copy his production value. But Bischoff was a huge believer of you need stars, you need characters. That's why he hired Hulk. That's why he hired Macho Man. That's why he did all that stuff. So it unfortunately, Austin being a good worker wasn't enough. And, the quick fix for Austin was, let's put a mid title on him like the US belt. We'll put a manager with them, and it just never worked. And Austin was never given the chance to develop his promo skills and really develop a character. He was stunning Steve Austin, sure, but like, what is that? What is that? Who was he? I don't think he knew, he knew he was a good worker, but I don't think Austin really knew like what he was. What is stunning Steve Austin? I don't know. He tried it. You kind of saw when he was part of the stud stable, he cut his hair short. He cut his hair short a little bit before that, but he started growing beard stubble. He was trying to be a little bit more of a Austin. I think always knew I got to be a little bit gruffy. I want to be a little bit more of a kind of like a dark horse, like a badass. He always knew it. And really he kind of started that in WCW with the stud stable. He tried to grow a little bit of a beard and he tried to, be a little different. And I think he really wanted to be a little bit edgy, but you didn't really know what edgy was in like 94, it just wasn't. We'll get to the firing. I'll let you get to the firing, Dave, but
yeah, we're going to get there. Well, this is where it gets a little weird because at this point, Austin's in pretty good company, right? Until he has a few bouts with, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Look, we all love little Hacksaw, right?
Of course.
Not gonna lie.
Well, yeah.
But what exactly changed here? I know Austin was dealing with a knee issue, and ultimately he took time off. But was there more to that, or was it just WCW?
What happened was he lost to Steamboat at the Clash of the Champions, but then Steamboat suffered a career-ending neck injury. It was just something that sort of snuck up on him. I think he did this spot against Austin at a house show, and it was a spot where I'm going to get it wrong. Something had to do with the top rope, and then Steamboat took a bump and landed flat on his ass. That was part of the deal. But Steamboat wasn't ready for the bump or something one night, or just fell differently and landed straight on his ass, and it just shot right up his tailbone. And it really just fucked his back up and his neck up really bad. And Steamboat was getting older at that time and had nagging injuries like everybody else did. So that just put Steamboat over the edge. So unfortunately, Steamboat retired outside the ring. He wasn't able to lose the belt. So at Fall Brawl 94, the whole, in front of the cameras, it's part of the storyline, Steamboat came out and said, I'm done. I can't wrestle anymore, which was true. He legitimately retired like that. And he's like, I pretty much like he was supposed to face Austin that night. Austin was going to rematch him for the title. And so he was like, basically, I forfeit the belt. And so Nick Bockwinkel was the commissioner at the time. And he said, well, you have to forfeit it since you can't wrestle Austin and he was your mandatory challenger tonight, you have to forfeit the belt to Austin. So technically, Austin won the U.S. title back, but Steamboat handed it to him. And then Nick Patrick said, well, hang on 1 second. You're not going to get off that easy. You have to defend the title tonight. And it's against this man. And Hacksaw, the only hint that you had that Hacksaw was going to join WCW was at Bash at the Beach when Hogan beat Flair. They did a whole thing like where the camera followed Hulk to the back and he was shaking people's hands and people were clapping for him in the locker room and he won the title. And Hacksaw comes out of nowhere and shakes Hulk's hands and Hulk's all, oh, Hacksaw, brother. So you kind of knew that Hacksaw was in WCW or coming at the time, but then that was it. You never heard anything after Hacksaw after that. And then out of nowhere, he comes out, he beats Austin in like 30 seconds or a minute or some shit like that. And Hacksaw wins the US belt. So it was a combination of, again, Bischoff was like, I want to hire someone that people know. So you can say what you want about Hacksaw and this bullshit that he beat Steve Austin. But think about it. Like, Steve Austin he was floundering in the sense that, no, he didn't know what he was. He didn't know what his voice was. So Bischoff hired Hogan, Savage, Hacksaw. So, he brings Hacksaw out there. He wins the U.S. title. Everyone hoed for Hacksaw. And that's what Bischoff wanted. He wanted reactions from the crowds. When he sold his product, he could be like, look at this. We have Hacksaw. Look at the crowd. Everyone knows him. Oh, everyone knows Macho Man, Slim Jim. Everyone knows Hulk Hogan. That's what Bischoff was going for. So unfortunately, it wasn't the land of the workers anymore, WCW. It became the land of WWFB is what Bischoff kind of created, but he was trying to surpass Vince and trying to do it, and he eventually did. But unfortunately, Austin was just part of that old worker mentality. He's a great worker, but we don't need great workers. We need stars. And instead of Bischoff trying to create at the time, Bischoff took a company over, in his defense, that was dying and floundering. So they didn't have time to build stars. The time they should have built stars was when fucking dumb shit, Jim Herd was, executive vice president. That's when they should have been building stars. After they fired Flair and fucked up, they should have really tried. They should have kept Paul Lee there and kept the Dangerous Alliance there and kept listening to Paul Lee and all that stuff and just develop stars. But they didn't. So unfortunately, by the time Bischoff got it, it was such a dying company that they were just like, you got to fucking move the needle right now. So then Bischoff was doing desperate things like, signing Hogan. And I'm not saying desperate because obviously that was a great move, but just fucking, can we hire Hulk? Do you have the money for him? I'm thinking outside the box here. We got to hire some guys. We got to hire some stars, right? So that's the desperation mode. So I know you're going to get to the firing, but I'll kind of speed up to the firing. He fired him by FedEx and all that stuff because Austin was injured, and I'll let you still take it, Dave. But you got to think that Bischoff was in desperation mode. He took this company for the umpteenth time. They reassigned someone new as executive vice president. So he's like, I got to fucking do something different than what any other dumb shit's done before me. They tried booking the way they booked in the 80s. It failed. They tried copying Vince and making the monies, and that failed. So like, I have to do something. I need to buy what Vince already made and transplant it and get sponsors that way. So Bischoff thought, I need to do things administratively. I need to think about sponsors and about this and about that. So it didn't become about the work rate anymore. It became about who is known and who can spike a crowd, get them to cheer. And, oh, I know that guy. It's Hacksaw. Oh, I know that guy. It's Honky. I know that guy. It's this, and he did try to build his own stars. Like he liked Johnny B. Bad, and eventually he built DDP and all that stuff. But that came later. But I mean, like it's not Bischoff's fault. Austin was in the middle and he was injured a lot, as Dave will cover. And that's why he got fired. And was it right that he did it over FedEx? Probably not. But people keep harping on that and saying, oh, what an idiot. You fired the biggest star. He was the second coming. Nobody knew. Nobody could look at Austin. Yet. Nobody knew that. It's so easy to look back. And these are the same fans that look back and think they know what they're talking about and think they know everything. And they don't. Like, it was a different time. And looking back, I was bummed because I liked Austin. But at the same time, looking back, it was the right move. Austin was just a guy. And that was it. You cut bait, right?
Yeah, that's basically what I mean. That is what happened. I mean, Austin tore his tricep muscle. That takes a long time to recover. I mean, we've seen Dean Ambrose / Jon Moxley try to recover from that. It took a little even longer for him, but it's a pretty dangerous injury. You can see what happens to people's arms when muscle fibers tear like that and ligaments tear like that. They're never the same if they don't fix it. I mean, Paul Orndorff's example of that with his biceps.
Oh, yeah.
It's bad. I mean, it really messed him up. So, he tears a tricep, he's going to be out. And it does suck that he got fired in the mail. I mean, yeah, that sucks. But he's also a contracted person. He's not somebody who's on salary at WCW that can take disability and get insurance. It's not how it works. There's a reason why that's not how it works. I mean, because I dare you to go against the grain on this one.
No. Well, I think it's a shitty way to fire someone, but I don't think it's from the perspective of everyone saying, "Oh, you fired the biggest star ever." Like you said, no one knew that he was going to do that. But that's still a pussy fucking cowardly way to fire somebody.
I mean, I could say it's cowardly. That could be true. I could also see, and
but not really. I mean, like
I could see Bischoff being incredibly busy with his shit and saying, "Hey, we gotta get this."
I mean, at least give him a phone call. Hey, bud, sorry.
Sure. That's a valid point.
But maybe I don't agree with everyone saying that you fired the biggest star, you idiot. No, because no one knew. No one knew. No one knows when anyone's going to be the biggest star.
Yeah.
Until it starts happening.
Until it happens.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, Austin getting fired via FedEx is he'll probably tell you now it's one of the best things that ever happened to him.
Obviously.
And this is why. Jess made a comment about the Dangerous Alliance with Paul E. Dangerously, who is now Paul Heyman. We all know that. If you don't know that, you do now. And why that relationship is so important, because what happens, even though Austin still can't wrestle, like months after he's been fired from WCW, Paul Heyman, or Paul E. Dangerously, whatever you want to call him at the time, at this point it's Paul Heyman in 1995, he actually takes a chance on Steve Austin, who really, Jess and I talked about it. I said, how many matches did Austin actually wrestle in ECW? And Jess is like, I think it's probably 2. It's not that many. It's just a few here and there. But the biggest thing that happened here was Paul Heyman would just get a camera and Steve, and they would go to work for hours. And so, because at this point, the only thing Austin can do is vignettes. That he can do vignettes, and he can make fun of stuff, and he can have fun, and he can find his voice. And I know I'm really cutting this really short. You guys can kind of add on to it if you want to, but this was crucial to forming the Stone Cold persona. So to the point you guys just made, no one knew you were firing the Next Coming, because the Next Coming didn't even get the roots until, in my opinion, this point at WCW. Austin didn't know who he was. That was Jess's comment. And I think he started to find out who he was when he couldn't wrestle. So what do you have? What am I really about? And that's where these ECW promotions come in, and he blows the roof off without having to set foot inside the square circle. What do you guys think?
I think that, and again, you can say what you want about Paul Heyman, and you can like ECW or you cannot, but he did the smartest thing that you could do with an indie promotion at that time, and it's make fun of the other guys. And ECW, I mean, you dig down, he had cruiserweights in there, he had the Malenkos, he had Jericho, he had Mysterio, he had Benoit, and that was awesome because Paul Heyman knew good wrestling, but he also knew how to do compelling storylines as well. But he also broke that wall where he's like, fuck it, Shane Douglas is going to fucking rag on Flair. We're going to make fun of every product. This fucking product is shit. This product is shit. This is crap. So when Austin became free, he's like, hey, Austin's like, I need a job. And Paul's like, well, I mean, I can't pay you as much as WCW was, but I can, and Austin's like, I can't wrestle. I'm still rehabbing and all that stuff. And, and Paul's like, that's okay. I have a microphone. And you're upset, right? And Austin's like, yeah. He's like, well, fucking come on and say what you want to say. And that's where that one episode of ECW television happens, where they kind of end it. And then they go over to Steve Austin in the back, and he's wearing a yellow shirt, and he looks like Hulk Hogan. And it says Steve-O-Mania. And he's cutting a promo as Hulk, basically like, ripping on, tongue in cheek, ripping on the company and all that stuff, and saying Steve Austin couldn't make it in the WCW and all that stuff, and blah, blah, blah.
You're Steve Austin! That's where you're wrong, Mean Joey, because Steve Austin doesn't have what it takes to get it done in the ECW, brother. I was never allowed to reach past mid-card status in the WCW, brother. So you know what, dude?
And just did the whole thing, and then they did the whole Eric Bischoff skit, didn't they, too, cuz? Like, where he was Eric Bischoff, and he had the fucking black wig on.
And he had the bongos next to him, and that was representing Steve Mongo McMichael, and he called it Monday Night Quill, where the big boys play with each other.
Everybody, and welcome to Monday Night Wall, where the big boys play with each other. I apologize for the balloons, but I had to fire the pyrotechnician guy because he couldn't show up. I did it over the phone, no less, but I had to fire him. Okay, right here, where the big boys play with each other.
Yeah,
all that shit.
So, but I mean, that was
great.
all like figuring it out, and that's what. And to keep this really short, as far as my rant here, that's what today's wrestlers are missing.
Of course, without a doubt.
You left WCW and went to a different company that had nothing to do with WCW. You didn't go from NXT to the main roster, which is still WWE when you think about it. You went from one company to another, and they had nothing to do with each other. So you had this gripe with this company, WCW, which was number 2 at the time, and trying to be number 1. And they had Hogan and Savage and all the big guys. And they were trying to, but it was like, the old dinosaur show. And then he would make fun of the WWE as being cartoon. So he got to finally say, Paul Heyman was the first one that said, just rip back that wall. Don't expose wrestling itself for being fake, but rip on the companies. And that was genius because he could actually say they suck. Like they didn't know how to use me. They didn't know how to do this. He didn't say they didn't know how to push me, which is what someone would say now. Cause it's cool to say industry terms, but like Austin would just be like, they didn't know how to use me. They didn't know my star power. I'm the fucking best. I'm the man, but he got to be angry. And by being angry, that was the early stages of Stone Cold. He just didn't know it yet, but he was mad and he was really pissed off that he got fired by FedEx. And he was really pissed off that he knew he was a great worker and these fucking dinosaurs come into this company. And that was Bischoff's, thing, turned out to be the best thing for him for temporary. But at the same time, like Austin was just mad. I'm in this industry. I'm a pro wrestler at heart. That's what I do for a living. And like, you fucking fire me and I'm fucking super talented. I'm talented. I'm young. I have all kinds of ideas and you just fucking want to hire the Hacksaws and Hogans and Savages of the world. Fuck you. I'm going to tell you, fuck you. And that's what ECW was for him. And he was able to do it. And he wrestled Mikey Wimprek and he had some cool storylines or whatever. Yeah, Sandman. He wasn't there for long, but that time, I'm convinced that short time, and they do say it in every documentary, he really got loose and he got angry. But Austin is so talented that he knew I got to turn my anger into a character. I got to turn it into wrestling. I got to bring it in there. It's one thing to be angry and just say reckless stuff. That never gets you anywhere. But what does get you somewhere is being angry, but then Austin being so good to know, I can hone this. I can use this. And Heyman going, yeah, let's do that. I mean, that's next level shit. And that's how good Austin is. For anybody who, doesn't put Austin in their top 10 promos or whatever, you're dumb because he is. And he knows what he's doing and he knows how to make a character and he knows where he's at all times. Steve Austin understands where he's at all times. He always has. And he knows how to cut a promo on that. And he was learning at the time. So Paul Heyman just pretty much gave him what he needed to give, which was no direction. He gave him a gift. I have no direction for you, but you're mad, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, fucking say it. Say you're mad. You just want me to say what I want to say? Yeah, just fucking say it. Okay. And that's it. And he went out there and he was mad and he did these skits and it got the shit off his chest. And then once he got that off his chest, now I can concentrate on who am I? What am I going to do? What's my direction?
Well, he learned a lot. Oh, God.
It just brings it to a really interesting, tie into the next realm. We're in the same year, 1995. WWE finally calls, and the $1 Million Corporation and the Ringmaster. It's hard to believe that that's where we are. Austin wasn't always Stone Cold, but you have to start somewhere, and that's where the Ringmaster comes in. My question, and because I think I'll let you field it, is, and there's a few of them here, why didn't we see the great promos of Austin right away? Why did they feel he needed a mouthpiece at this point? I understand in WCW he may have needed help, but was that necessary here? What's your take on that? Give us the ringabout, give us the rigmarole with the $1 Million Man, and tell us what you think about it, man. Give us your opinion.
What? Well, wasn't it? I might not be remembering this correctly, but wasn't it because Vince only saw him as a mechanic? As far as he didn't.
That's the story.
Jim Ross pitched him as a mechanic.
Yeah, okay.
And Jim Ross is like, you need to hire someone for Shawn because Shawn was champion. They put the title on Shawn at WrestleMania. So they knew in 95 that they were building to Shawn to beat Brett in 96 at WrestleMania for the title. So they had to bring Austin in because he's like, you're going to need mechanics to work with Brett and Shawn. And so Jim Ross was like, I know this guy that I know really well and I have a history with, Steve Austin. He needs a job and he's fucking really good.
And it was also Nash too, I think, if I'm not mistaken, right? Nash also pitched him.
Yes, he did. Yeah. Okay. Nash liked him and said, yeah, you guys got to hire him.
And isn't it funny because how little time he spent in ECW, how not only did it, like we're mentioning, it influenced his character. It's where he learned to cut great promos, but it also formed his great mind that we saw later when it came to the title picture in WWF. What did we always say? That it was most profitable. It was most, as far as interest in the television when he was chasing the title. In ECW, he did not want the title on him because he said that he's better as the guy that's chasing the title, not the guy with the title that's being, chased after. So it's just funny, everything that he learned in ECW, and Vince didn't see it until later on, obviously. And, obviously that's, like you said, Jim Ross and everyone pitched him as a mechanic and he had the mouthpiece. And, you once they let him loose, that's when you got to see everything unfold. And when people say oh, we want the Attitude Era back. Let's bring it back. I don't agree with that in the sense of bringing back the smut, the blanket statement of bringing the Attitude Era back. Bring back the smut TV. Bring back the Jerry Springer, the Mae Young having a hand as a baby and mud wrestling with divas and this and that. What I want to see as far as that goes, and this is the example right here, is bring back the time when you let them push the envelope, but you also let the wrestlers use their creativity, do their own thing, and Stone Cold is proof. He honed that in ECW, and once they let that loose in WWE after dropping the mouthpiece, you saw what happened. And I think that's how I feel about all that as far as like you said, he was pitched as
You're saying you're saying they listened to him and realized that they were wrong and let him take a chance.
Well, as having a mouthpiece when he first came there, they've used him as a technician. That's all he was, the mechanic in the ring, which obviously he was. He was a great fucking, technician in the ring. And then once you let him loose, you realize all that full potential that he was kind of showing you in ECW. They realized it, and obviously it worked.
Sure.
Obviously it worked after that.
All right. Well, then I guess maybe it was necessary because it was necessary for Stone Cold to, to actually raise his voice a little bit and be heard and say, this is not going to work. Yes. This is what I need to do. So, okay, I take that. Let's move forward a little bit. 1996, Stone Cold actually is coming to fruition. That's where the name comes into play. And you know where we're going because
oh yes,
Austin gets a little lucky here, but as I see luck, it's when hard work meets opportunity. And in this case, the opportunity was Triple H being replaced as the winner of the King of the Ring in 1996. We're probably going to discuss the curtain call someday and discuss why, Triple H was punished in this, but without this change, we would not have that famous incident. Okay, cuz I'm going to let you just take the wheel on it, bro. Tell us what happened. Tell us what happened the next night tell us what happened after the King of the Ring victory that night and what happened the next night as well, the immediate aftermath, if you will.
Well, you guys want to go on and as why Triple H was taken out first, as far as why Austin replaced Triple H?
Well, I think it even goes back before that. I think it's Austin got pit. Like, I don't think he was going to get released, but I think Vince was just like, I got nothing for him. And Vince was getting, not trounced at this point because NWO hadn't hit, but actually WCW was finding its stride.
Yeah.
And they were starting to bring in cruiserweights in 96 and they were starting to kind of do different things. And so Austin was getting frustrated. And after WrestleMania 12, Austin was just like, I want to say WrestleMania 12 was the first big pay-per-view that he came out with a Stone Cold name. It wasn't working out with DiBiase, and so Austin, went to Vince and said, with all due respect, I respect Ted, but he's not for me and I'm not for him. So Vince is like, well, what do you want to do? Like, I like your in-ring work. All the boys praise you. You're good in the locker room. You're professional and all that stuff. So what do you want to do? I don't know, but I want to do something more edgier. And he's like, fine, think of some names. So that's a famous story where Austin was getting faxes from the office, Frosty McFreeze and stuff like that. Because Austin's like, I kind of want to be, I want to be like this ice cold killer kind of character and like all that stuff. No feelings. Yeah. Like I'll stab anyone in the back. Like, I'll do whatever. Yeah. So you want to be the Iceman, Steve Austin. You want to be Ice Dagger. You want to be Frosty McFreeze. So he's getting these fucking faxes from creative, and again, no shitting on creative. They're just trying to throw stuff. What about this? What about that? Anything dumb or smart, they're throwing. So he's like, no. And so he was stressing one day, and he was with his wife, who was British.
Yes, and
they were sitting and they were having lunch together, she was making them tea. And so she's British, so of course you need tea. And so, but that's a huge stereotype, but that's what happened. And so she was sitting down and she got him tea. She's like, do you want some tea? And he's like, yeah, go ahead and make me some tea. And she brings him the tea and he's still stressing. I don't know what to do. And she's like, well, you know what? Let's take a break. You better drink your tea before it becomes stone cold. And he looked at her and he's like, that's fucking it. And she's like, what? And he's like, Stone Cold Steve Austin. And that's where it was born, right there.
Yes.
Like, he called the office and he's like, my fucking, like, Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's what I want to be. I want to be like a killer with no feelings. I want to be in no remorse. I'll strike you if you're a good guy, if you're a bad guy or whatever. So that's where it started. That's how it started.
Yep. And obviously that's where the name starts, but we got to talk about the incident.
Then the curtain call happened.
Yeah, the curtain call.
Yep. And then the famous thing happened.
Yes.
All right. Take it away, cuz.
And then what happens? He fights in the King of the Ring tournaments. He gets busted open, right? Who do you fight? Was it Savio Vega?
Mero. It was Mero.
Mero. Okay, there you go. Yeah, and then he gets his he has to go to the hospital to get stitches.
Mero accidentally does like a it was like a not a back body drop, but he did like this when you backdrop someone and they pull you over for a cradle. Mero accidentally hit Steve Austin's lip with his boot. It was an accident, and it split his top lip open.
There you go.
And so he needed stitches. It was like pretty bad. And so he beat Mero. And in the same night, they had the semifinals and the finals.
Yeah.
Right. And so he beats Mero. He has to leave the building to get stitches to make it back to face Jake in the finals.
Yes.
So he did that within like an hour span. And that just shows you how tough Steve Austin is. He's like, fuck you. Like, this is my fucking night. I asked for a push. I got a new name and all this stuff. I'm not fucking missing this for a split lip. Yeah, I'm not going to fucking miss this for a split lip. And not even knowing how big this was going to be. Like, not knowing it. He was just like, I'm booked to win a tournament. Like, that's, I mean, that was a big deal, right? You know, I'm booked to be King of the Ring. Because going back a little bit, Triple H was actually supposed to win the 1996 King of the Ring, but because he participated in the curtain call, which we'll get to in a different episode, Vince punished him and he's like, well, you're not winning that shit anymore. You're losing every week to a hog farmer. So basically Vince is like, well, let's let Steve Austin win it. So basically that's how Steve Austin he lucked into it. And so like Cuz said, he got his lip split open in the semifinals and earlier in the pay-per-view. He went to the hospital during the live pay-per-view, came back in an hour, and then faced Jake in the finals and pinned Jake clean with this new move called the Stone Cold Stunner.
But do you remember, and I don't remember who it was when he got back, who was it that ran up to him and said, hey, Jake cut this promo, so here's what you have to work with.
Yeah, I don't remember. You're right. I don't remember.
Was it Pritchard?
Yeah, when he got back from the emergency room, someone ran up to him and Austin was basically like, fill me in on what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and he's like, well, Jake cut this promo because at the time Jake was returning and Jake was,
Christian.
He was on the wagon at this point. He was trying to beat his demons and he wasn't drinking anymore. And he was kind of, he found God, quote unquote, in real life. And he kind of brought that to the screen. His snake was called Revelations. So that's what, he was trying to push that. So Jake quoted this Bible quote of John 3:16 in his interview. So when Austin got back to the arena, Austin's like, fill me in on what happened. And he was like, Jake cut this promo on you. He said, John 3:16, blah, blah, blah. So Austin said, okay. In his mind, Austin's like, all right, I got it. I know what to do. So he went to Jake and he asked Jake, hey, here's the deal. My character's kind of edgy. So I'm going to cut this promo on you. I'm going to kind of make fun of you. I'm going to make fun of your age. I'm going to kind of make fun of your Bible references. Is that okay? And Jake Roberts said, absolutely. Yeah, go for it.
Do it.
Like, so Jake gave him the okay. So Austin's like, all right. No one knew what he was going to do. Vince is like, just fucking wing it. Fuck off. I'm busy. And like did all that stuff. So Austin's like, all right. So I don't know I think you should take this because you love Austin's ball sack. So I think you should take this. So he wins. He hits the Stone Cold Stunner, which Michael Hayes created, by the way. And they wanted something quick that Austin just hit you with strike like a snake. And hit you really fast and pin you. And so funny how he became the rattlesnake and all that stuff. It's so funny how all this like starts. And so Hayes was just like, why don't you do this? Why don't you kick a guy in the gut to set him up and then turn around, put his head, turn around, put your back to his belly and pull his head over your shoulder and you fall on your ass. They'll fall on their knees and you're going to strike their jaw. Like it's basically
now really quick on there because if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember if this was in the biography or not, but wasn't it actually modified from Mikey Whipwreck's original move, the whippersnapper?
Possibly, yes.
I think you're right. Sworn that he said that he got it from that. But maybe Michael Hayes came up with the whole, kicking him in the stomach.
Hayes came with the way they bumped on it.
Yes.
Like, here's how your opponent should bump and here's how you should do it. You're going to fall on your ass. You're going to crush. That's how it kind of happened.
Yeah.
So before the pay-per-view, he was actually, I think he had done the stunner a couple times to people. But he was just trying to get it over.
Yeah.
And figure it out. And so he beats Jake with it clean in the center of the ring. He comes back from, in real life, he fucking gets staples or, stitches, not staples.
Yeah.
Stitches put in his lip and he fucking comes back and beats Jake, stunners him, beats him clean, which when I saw this live on pay-per-view in my house and I cheered fucking loud because I loved Austin. I was like so glad that finally like, fuck, they're pushing him. Like I was really happy because I was a big Austin fan of his work. And so when he hit it and he pinned Jake, I was like, fuck, not only did he pin a face clean, but he pinned Jake. And I thought Jake was going to win the tournament. It seemed like Jake was going to win the King of the Ring. And so when Austin beat him, I was like fucking so excited. And then he walks up after he wins the title to the throne where the crown was, and Michael Hayes was waiting to interview him. And history happens.
Yes, and I should paraphrase it because we're obviously, for the audience, we're gonna play the clip for them, and I'm sure everyone that watched it growing up, they have this ingrained into their head. I just as a kid too, when you're a kid, you're taught this is a good guy, this is a bad guy. Not in wrestling, but just in general in life. The bad guys, they say the bad words and they do this and that. And good guys, they don't say bad words, they don't cuss, and they're very, moral and noble and this and that. There was just something about that promo. Everything from you hear the ringmaster music as he's walking up the step to the ceremony. To where the throne is at. He didn't
have the glass breaking music yet. He saw the ringmaster
shit. And then Doc Hendricks as he's walking up, the fourth prestigious king of the ring, an incredible victory. And just got to paraphrase, but I'll paraphrase the last part of it. You sit there and you thump your Bible and you say your prayers and it didn't get you anywhere. You talk about your Psalms, you talk about your John 3:16. Austin 3:16 said, I just whipped your ass. And then I think he even said after that, he kind of was like, oh, shit. I don't know if I should have said that. Because he said, oh, catch a lot of heat for that one. And then, even Doc Hendricks, oh, come on, that's unnecessary.
And it didn't get you anywhere. Talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says, I just whipped your ass.
And yeah, then, it was. And when I watched it live, I was like, he said ass on TV, first of all. Oh, my God.
Yes.
This is how desensitized like all of us became during the Attitude Era to ass and crazy stuff. Back then in 1996, when he said ass,
yes,
we were like, oh, my God.
Yeah, exactly.
He said, it was really that big. It was a big deal.
And that's what I was trying to get at.
I know it sounds funny to young people listening right now, but that shit was not on TV at that point, especially WWF. And so like he said that, and the crowd popped huge when he said that. So he's making fun of a face, and as Jake is being carried out, by the way, he's cutting this promo.
Oh my God.
So Jake's being carried out by the referees. They put, they stand on either side of Jake, and Jake puts their arm around him, and they take him out.
Shit, yeah.
And Jake's walking right in front of him, and he's like, you thump your Bible, like right to Jake's face almost. And I was like, oh my God.
Well, to me,
Joe and I were like, dude, fuck, we were happy because we loved Austin, but we were like, dude, this is fucking nuts right now. Like, he's running this guy down, talking about God on TV, saying ass, and this clever phrase, Austin 3:16 said I whipped your ass. And then at the end, it's funny, in Stone Cold's book and his biography, I had to make sure I got in because Stone Cold said so.
Yes.
And he had to make sure he said that because he was like, I was convinced that was the phrase I was going to push. That was the phrase that Austin was like, because Stone Cold said so. That's my big thing. That's what I'm going to get famous for. And it's so funny because he did use that, and people do know him for that. But the Austin 3:16 hit such a fucking spark. Like, it just instantly, we talk about organic. I don't know of any other organic moment than this.
Yes.
To use the word organic to describe, because it was legitly organic. Any way you can think about it, backstage and in front of the camera, it was like, Austin, fucking say what you want to say. And Austin did the right stuff because Austin's a pro and he respects wrestlers and pro wrestling. And he talked to Jake and he talked to P.S. Hayes and he got permission to do stuff from them. Like, should I do this? Should I do that? He was that kind of a pro. And he didn't know that Austin 3:16 was going to hit the chord that it hit. But at the same time, he just really wanted to make sure that, Jake, are you okay with this? So people now, they just see shooting pipe bombs on TV and they're like, yeah, they're fucking talking shit. Fuck you, Vince. Fuck you, Shane. But no, you know what? Austin was fucking smart because he's that good. And he went and talked to people and he's like, how should I do this? And Jake, can I talk to you about this? I'm going to talk about your God thing. I'm going to talk about your alcoholism. I'm going to talk about all this shit. And Jake's like, yes, like, do it. Yeah. Like, Jake was so smart. He was like, yes, absolutely. I want you to get over. You're young. I want you. Like,
well, there was something about that image when you saw Jake being held back and his head kind of down and, being carried to the back. And when he says, all he's got to do is buy himself a cheap bottle of Thunderbird to try to dig back some of that courage he had in his prime. Like, there's just something just about that too. But that's like how you said about him saying ass on TV, where that was like a big deal. That's what I meant as far as, or that's what I was getting to as far as when you're a kid, you're like, the good guys don't cuss, and bad people, they do. And it's like, when you heard that, it's even though I've been, taught that as a kid, there was something about him saying that. Even though me being a young kid, like barely 10 years old already, just something about that made me gravitate towards Austin, and obviously we're going to go over the several other events that fucking just keep pushing him up there. Little by little, that's where I started. I was taught not to like people like this, and it didn't matter because there was something so organic and just something about him that caught you, even as a kid who didn't understand heel, face, work, shoot, all that stuff. There was just something about him in that promo that like kind of lit that fire. Like, oh, this guy's awesome. I'm gravitating towards this guy, and this is what I mean when I say, as far as the Attitude Era, bring that stuff back, where you let guys do this stuff, where you let them improvise on their own. Basically, I mean, obviously he thought about it in the back, but let them do their thing like this. This is proof right here.
And Dave said earlier that luck meant opportunity, and it met it over and over and over again in this promo, because not only was that it was not just the event where Triple H got punished and got pulled out, Vince saying, well, you were booked to win King of the Ring 96, but not anymore, motherfucker. It wasn't just that. That was a huge deal. Obviously, you had to put Austin in this position, but luck meant opportunity with that. It meant opportunity with Austin getting his lip split. It meant opportunity with them coming up with the Stone Cold Stunner. It meant opportunity with Austin in the back talking to Jake and saying, hey, can I use your promo against you? And blah, blah, blah. It meant opportunity with Austin putting in his head, I'm going to brand myself with, because Stone Cold said so. Then it meant opportunity. Opportunity meant like again when he said the Austin 316 line, which he didn't even know that would end up branding him in long run. Like he didn't know. Luck meant opportunity like 7.5 billion times.
Well, isn't it funny? Like, how they say two negatives are a positive. You think back, he's injured, gets fired from WCW. Two negatives. What happens? He gets to go to ECW. ECW, the two negatives. I can't wrestle right now, and I'm not going to get paid as much. I get to cut my promos. Two negatives, King of the Ring. Triple H gets taken out because he's punished, and the other negative, I get my lip busted open. I got to go to the hospital and come back. So it's like every time it's two negatives that turn into a positive for Austin.
I don't think it's. I cannot stress enough how it's amazing that he is who he is. We know all who he is now. We know what he became, and that. All this shit had to happen. Yeah. I mean, my goodness gracious. Like,
he had to go through the ringer.
One couldn't have done without the other. Like, it couldn't have. Don't get me wrong. The inventing of the Stone Cold Stunner, positive. That would have been, that probably would have caught. That probably would have gotten over, right? But then him saying Stone Cold said so, that probably would have gotten over, right? But Austin 316 had to happen. That was the fucking, ripple in the pond that everyone was like, what did he say? Like, how catchy is that shit? So much to where I know we're trying to get to this point. The next night, Raw, fans are bringing signs in that say Austin 316. Yeah. And they're looking around, and Bruce Pritchard even said, he looked at Vince, he's like, we fucking got a star on our hands. And Vince is like, yeah, like, let's figure it out. Now, Dave, I'm going to let you take over because I have a dose of reality that I need to splash on a lot of Steve Austin fans here. So go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I know there are some things in between before we get there because, after King of the Ring 96, we have some, in my opinion, there's two more really important factors that come into play on Austin's rise and also the WWF starting to take over in the realm of 83 weeks. I want to talk about the Pillman feud and the Hart feud. So let's start with Pillman real quick.
Well, no, before you get to that, let me dispel my rumor. So, and that's not a rumor. Let me dispel the common consensus. So you've heard of the phrase revisionist history.
Sure.
Usually that is with someone who kind of wins a war, or, we find out a lot now about American history that wasn't, Christopher Columbus wasn't this, or he's kind of a dick and all that stuff. But we were taught in schools that he's this man who discovered America and he's this and that. And, revisionist history is that, where we fondly think back on someone. And I'm not saying they were evil in the long run, but we cut out a huge chunk. We go from step 1 to step 4 and we forget the steps in the middle. He cuts that promo and organically gets over, and they strike fire with him. And that was July of 96. That was King of the Ring.
June.
In August. Oh, sorry. June. I'm sorry. In August of 96, that's SummerSlam, right?
Yes.
Guess where Austin was on the card?
Less than mid.
Nope.
Kickoff.
Austin was on the kickoff show. He was on the preview match, the Freeview, as they called it.
Yeah.
Against Yokozuna. So when people are like, oh, He said Austin 316 on that promo, and then here we go. Caught fire, baby. Negative.
Did not happen that way.
No, the next major pay-per-view after he said Austin 316 said I whipped your ass and won the King of the Ring and did all that stuff or whatever, he was on the free-for-all against Yokozuna. And he beat Yokozuna, but they did not know what to do with him. They had no idea. And it just showed that it didn't. The thing that saved him was Brett was out for most of 96. After he lost to Shawn Michaels, Brett took a hiatus and did fucking Lonesome Dove and did other things and cheated on his wife a bunch of times. And so when Brett came back, they're like, who do you want to face? And he was like, I want to face Steve Austin, because Brett always loved his work from WCW. And Brett's like, I want to face Steve Austin. You guys don't even understand what you have. And Brett was the first guy to be like, not only did he get over at King of the Ring, but he's a heel and he can fucking work well. Why the fuck would I not want to face him? Are you joking? Even Vince was like, or you don't want to face my, in whatever heel he was putting up at the time. And Brett's like, fuck no, I don't want to face that guy. I want to face Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's what I want to do. And again, this is opportunity meets luck, or whatever Dave said before, where Brett didn't even know that the bubblegum babyface was about to be flushed down the toilet and it was about to become dead. Society was changing and fans wanted something different. They wanted that cheap Thunderbird, and they wanted that fucking in your face, fuck you guy and all that stuff. And the crowd didn't quite know that's what they wanted yet, but they didn't. So Austin floundered up until Survivor Series when Brett's like, I want to come back and face Austin at Survivor Series 96 in my comeback match. He's the guy I want to do. And then all those fucking amazing promos. You want my opinion of Bret Hart? You put an S in front of Hitman and you have my exact opinion of Bret. Fucking amazing. They let Austin go nuts and he was able to say shit. I'm a better wrestler than you. I'm better than you. You're a loser. You're like this bubblegum goody two shoes. You suck. He was fucking all over Bret, saying this fucking crazy shit. Not this classic heel. Let me tell you something, Brett. In the Sportatorium on Thursday, you're going to go down, brother. I'm going to get you. It wasn't that. It was like, you fucking suck. You're the shit man. That's what I'm going to call you. Your new name is shit man. And and he was just fucking all over him. And Brett didn't even know what he was getting into, but he loved Austin as a person and he loved Austin's ring work. And he was like, we're going to fucking go. And that match at Survivor Series 96 is fucking great. And the way Brett beat Austin, he pinned Austin. But again, a lesson that they need to learn now.
Yes.
He narrowly beat Austin. Austin beat the shit out of him. Austin was talking shit the whole match. Austin was fucking developing his character and figuring out what Stone Cold was and who he was and doing all this stuff. And then Austin stupidly, in the script, stupidly went for the $1 Million Dream, which was but he didn't go with the stunner, which is what won the King of the Ring for him. He hit the $1 Million Dream. Brett kicked off the turnbuckle, rolled over on him and pinned him. And Austin was pissed. Austin stunned the ref afterwards and did all this stuff that got you still going I know Austin lost, but he fucking doesn't give a shit. He fucking stunned the fucking ref. What the fuck? He doesn't care. The next time on Raw, even though he lost by pin, fuck you. You're still a piece of shit, Brett. You dumb motherfucker. Now he didn't say those words, but you know what I mean? It was basically that kind of Raw promo where he was just fucking ripping Brett and your family sucks and you suck. And
it kept you wanting to see more, even though he lost.
Yeah, you fucking pussy. You couldn't fight me. You couldn't beat me fist to fist. You had to fucking roll me up and you pinned my shoulders. Fuck you. If I fight you next time, you're done. And it was just this amazing, organic, thing. And Brett, give him all the credit in the world. He's the one, as far as the in-ring talent was concerned, that said, no, I want Austin. I want that guy. He's got something. Little did Brett know, unfortunately, the crowd would turn on him. But again, it ended up benefiting Austin. But what an amazing... The Survivor Series match is when he wins in June and really didn't realize his voice, and Vince didn't really realize what he had until November when Brett came back and said, that guy. I'm facing that guy, no one else, that guy. And that's super important. Brett was a major importance in Austin becoming a star.
Well, you know what?
Huge.
You can't overlook. You can briefly mention, but the vignettes leading up to the match, the black and white and looked like he was in an alleyway with chain link fence and stuff. The little funny quotes "You lost to the boy toy. I ain't no sexy boy." Just all that little shit, dude. All the little vignettes and just the way he worked the mic. All that is important.
Sunglasses and sparklers. What a load of crap. So, Brett, you're coming back to continue a legacy? Stone Cold's going to make your comeback a living hell. You can start begging for some mercy right now. Beg for mercy. You're not going to find it. I think you're completely pathetic.
The business was changing, and on the other side, the NWO was whipping the shit out of them.
Yes.
So they had, and they were doing realistic angles. They were doing their real names, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall. They were doing black and white videos.
Sure.
They were doing all this stuff, and we're invading and all this stuff. So Austin knew right then, we have to be a little edgier. Vince and them didn't really grasp it yet. Like they didn't. So revisionist history is Austin says, Austin 316 says I whipped your ass. And then he wins the world title the next day. That's the way they want you to believe it, but it wasn't. It was a breathing process, which fans want this right now, and it's not that way. You want to remember that Austin said 316 and then off to the races, but it wasn't. It was like an 8-month breathing process where it was like Brett had to come in and be like, I want him. I want to work with him. A good wrestler had to come in.
You have to give a little bit of kudos to Pillman and Stone Cold too for making things edgier and starting those edgier vignettes.
Well, that was later. That was after.
But then to your point,
right?
That
was after, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. There's two sides of it. There's that too, but it's very minimal. It's not very much there because we know Pillman.
And can I say, and this is not going to be popular, but can I say that the Pillman and Austin gun angle was dumb as shit?
Yeah, it's stupid. It
was dumb, and I hate the fact that a lot of people remember Pillman for that because there's so many other positives to remember.
Oh, he's
Pillman
so much better than that.
And,
I don't mind the house showing up at the house like that. That's pretty funny. But yeah, the gun thing, that's stupid.
The gun was dumb and all that stuff. They were trying. Right?
Shoot him? Like
their back was against the wall, dude. NWO was fucking beating the fuck out of them. Like they had. So I don't blame Vince for trying, but people fondly remember the Austin and Pillman gun angle, and it was really dumb. It was dumb. Yeah. I'm sorry, it was.
So just to get you back on the time clock here, Austin loses the title shot to Hart at Survivor Series. Of said year. He gets a Royal Rumble win in heel fashion, and he even gets a main event.
The Royal Rumble, again, another shining moment. The same thing that Diesel did when Diesel was Royal Rumble 94, and he was throwing everybody out, and the crowd was actually cheering a heel. Austin got the same reaction. They were in the Alamo Dome, and they had 50,000 people there. And Austin was the star of that Rumble. Not only did he last a long time, but people were starting to cheer him, and you saw him, and he would sit on the rope when he would eliminate someone to look at his watch, but he wasn't wearing a watch. So people were laughing because he was sitting there, he's looking at his watch, he's like, oh, and all that. And people were laughing. You heard people laughing not at him, with him. This guy's fucking cool. This guy's fucking badass. And the whole thing where Brett really won, but Austin got thrown over by Brett, but the ref didn't see it, and Austin really won it. That whole thing just fed Austin's fucking fire. He was a heel. They were treating him like a heel, but he was still whatever. Nope, I beat you. No, you didn't. You fucking got thrown over. Really? Yeah. Because my hand got raised. It was just great. And it was all really good. And again, Brett should get tons of credit for this because Brett knew, God, this guy's great. I need this guy. I need Austin.
In the Rumble, when he was doing that, when he was sitting on the corner, and then remember when Brett's music hit and he put his hands on his head oh shit. And then Bret Hart comes out and they just start fucking battling out.
Uh-oh. Yes! 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 After Hitman Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin staying united in Royal.
Oh my God, Austin knew great wrestling, right? He knew how to push himself, but then when Brett hit, he knew I have to
Facial
be the heel
expression.
and be afraid of Brett. It puts Brett over coming down. So now you see, oh shit, if Austin no-sold that, it wouldn't have been as impactful when Brett got in the ring. But
exactly.
It's all true.
Brett's music hit, he's like, oh fuck, I forgot he was here. It was great. It was great.
Yeah.
And then just the little interactions after, building up to the final, the In Your House Final Four match where, that's where you already started seeing the beef with Vince and how he was saying, Brady, you come out here crying like a baby and saying stuff to Gorilla Monsoon. You call yourself the Gorilla, but you're out here hee-hawing like a jackass. All those little pieces, building up to obviously WrestleMania 13, which I'm, that's probably what we're going to get into next. And, from there on out, you saw the seeds being planted and it was awesome. It was just awesome watching that fire get bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
everything was
So,
important.
so even pushing through there, you can really feel the momentum turning his way, obviously, right? He even wrestled in a main event match for the vacant title in a 4-way match in your house.
Yes.
Then a day later, he's causing Hart to lose by Sid, the day later by interference. And then I want to fast forward a little bit because then we really get to the masterpiece. This is the match that everybody wants to level up to, like measure this match against this. This is the 5-star Dave Meltzer match that, almost never gives WWF a 5-star match ever at WrestleMania 13. Guys, just take it away. Talk about
Imagine, for over a decade, you fought to reach the pinnacle of your profession. Through sweat and dedication, you've earned the respect of fans, friends, and even your adversaries. Then you walk away. When you return 6 months later, nothing is the same.
I've been screwed by Shawn Michaels, the boy toy. I've been screwed by Stone Cold Steve Austin. I've been screwed by
There are no friends.
I love pro wrestling, and I hope I don't get emotional during this, but
You gonna cry?
this was a moment that I saw. I love Hulk, and I saw WCW beating the shit out of Vince, and it was so hard, like, to fathom. But I loved Hulk, so I loved it. Like, I did. I was really more leaning towards WCW. I'm going to be honest, because I loved Hulk, and I love that he re-revolutionized wrestling again with Hall and Nash. The NWO was a big deal and all that stuff, and like, I really enjoyed it because I always loved Hulk. I don't wish ill will on Vince or WWF, and I'm so glad they didn't go out of business, but they did come close. Jim Ross has said many times on podcasts, like, the word bankruptcy was brought up more than a few times as an option. And during that time. So when they had WrestleMania 13, they were down and out, and they didn't know what to do. And they still had some shit storylines and shit characters and all that stuff. And it wasn't all roses yet in the beginning of 97, not by a long shot. And WCW was just fucking hammering down on them. The ratings, they were setting cable ratings on Nitro and all that stuff. And Vince was just trying to struggle to catch up. But he had Austin, and he had Brett, and he had this chemistry and all that stuff. And man, I got WrestleMania 13 as a pay-per-view, and I had forgotten what WrestleMania was. And I forgot the energy that WrestleMania could bring and what it meant. And the card was blah. It was. And I know Craig was over, and Joe might have been over. And we watched Austin and Brett. And I know Cuz's favorite is Austin, but my favorite's Hulk, and I always kind of hammer on that. But really, Austin was one of my favorite workers when I really first learned what workers were and what they meant to the business and what a heel could do, and, how he really was the mastermind and how he had to figure, things out and play with the crowd. I really liked Austin, and I didn't realize how much I loved Brett, because I love the Hart Foundation. And then when Brett, I don't know where I turned on Brett. I think when Brett became champion, I got soured on it because it was just oddly done. And so I was falling back in love with Brett because I always knew what kind of a worker Brett was. And you watch Brett's like fucking water in there. It's ridiculous when you go and watch Brett. He's so good. God damn it, he's so good. And when I saw this match at WrestleMania 13 between these guys, I was just like, I forgot how not only special WrestleMania should be, but what a great match was. A truly, truly great match. And when I watched it and everything that went down, and we'll talk about the blood and all that stuff or whatever, and Austin passing out, just watching those two go, I remember afterwards being like breathless and kind of emotional, because I was just like, God, I think it hit me then. This is going to be a fight. WCW is not going to take this away. It's going to be a fight. Like, it's going to be a fucking fight. I just saw Austin and Brett in one of the best matches I've ever seen. Not because you can go back and be like, what a great wrestling match. It wasn't that. It was a great match. You believed they were fighting. You believed everything that led up to it. The shit man and everything that Cuz said, all the little funny things he said or whatever. And you believed it. And that character finally fucking hit. Oh my God. Stone Cold Steve Austin is over. Not over as in done, but he's over. Like, this is a guy that finally put his character together and then finally showed me the guy that he was in WCW. And he came back and he fucking stood in there with Brett. and was just like, and you'd seen him, as the ringmaster. The legend has it, as a ringmaster, he had great house show matches with Michaels that tore the house down. So everyone knew that Austin was a great worker. But now you saw it on the main stage. He put 2 and 2 together and got his character finally like refined and almost perfect. And then he fucking became stunning Steve Austin and said, I'm going to fucking go toe to toe with you because I'm a great pro wrestler. God damn it. And like, that's what I was so emotional after that match. And I was so thankful like that. God, this is why I love pro wrestling. This is what WrestleMania is, by the way. WCW had just been beating the shit out of him for like 8 months, and NWO was all anybody could talk about. And I loved it. It was great. But at the same time, I'm like, fuck, like, holy shit. Like, I just saw a WrestleMania match, for God's sakes. And it was a WrestleMania match to end all WrestleMania matches at the time. And it was like, wow. I can't talk enough about this match. I can't describe, I mean, what it meant to Austin's career and Brett, even though Brett doesn't really, it didn't, unfortunately, Brett ended, his ending sucked. But at the same time, this was like a double turn. It was a signal that the crowd, that the wrestling audience was changing. And wrestling had, NWO kind of figured out, well, they like bad guys. They like cool bad guys, right? We're gonna fucking go with it. And like, but WWF was trying to figure out like, okay, how do we got to tell the story of this fan favorite, and we got to switch him at the same time and then make this guy who called him the shit man like 2 months before, like a face somehow, because people are cheering Austin. Like, they're cheering him. And we got to tell Brett behind the curtain, because Brett was really mad. Brett was really legitimately mad behind the curtain. Like, I'm the babyface. Why am I getting booed? Why? And Brett didn't really understand it at the time, but Brett knew that Austin was hot and that he's really good. So Brett knew that much. And he's like, it's gotta be Austin to me. Like, but at the same time, Brett's like, why am I getting booed? And Austin was getting cheered, and Vince just finally pulled the trigger, and they did this amazing double switch. And Ken Shamrock had a big deal with that too, because Ken Shamrock was a special referee, but Ken Shamrock was a big part of the boo at the end, right? When Brett refused to fight him, that was again, like all part.
It's all memorable.
Pat Patterson did this, by the way, no shocker. And like, it got me emotional because like, I'm like, wow, I know it's fake, stupid wrestling, right? But I loved Austin and I loved Brett. And I was just like, God, like finally, like, I remember what WrestleMania is supposed to be. I remember what good storytelling, because as good as the story of the NWO was, they couldn't really, they were all, Hogan was old, and, they were using Flair, and he was old and all that stuff. And I'm not ripping on those guys, but it's like, but Vince figured out, and Austin with Brett, and they all figured out, how do we got to fucking be the best product in the ring. And we have to be the best product, like storytelling wise. So what do we do? And I mean, this match, what do you say? What do you say? Fuck. I can't even say it's a good match, because that's so like demeaning to this match. It defined an era, and it launched the biggest star in that era in Austin. It saved the company, and it changed Brett. And even though Brett didn't appreciate it at the time, it put Brett in his best period ever. That heel Brett with the Hart Foundation. Tell me any better promos that Brett's ever cut. Tell me any better of a fucking raw emotion that Brett hit, that raw nerve that Brett struck when he was heel in the USA but face in Canada. Who's ever done that before?
Yes, that was fucking.
It was never more real until that point.
All of that shit stemmed, and it was from the wrestling audience wanting something different.
Yes,
and they kind of brought it. They still were in character, but they brought it to the forefront. I cannot describe to people, the build up to this match was just as important. Like what Cud says about Austin's little promos, the Royal Rumble, the sitting on the thing with the watch, and then calling him the shit man and all that stuff. All of it had to happen in order for this to happen. But this match defined like the success that WWF would enjoy a year later. Like it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Ken Shamrock stopping it right now. That's it. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin has it out. Austin is unconscious. Austin never gave up.
And like I said, one would say that this is probably the best match ever, that we've ever seen. And it's you can
WrestleMania for sure.
Yeah. Best WrestleMania match. I could put it down as probably the greatest match ever. And I don't think you're going to get too many disputes over that. So after one more title opportunity with the Undertaker, as we just move the chains along here, Austin also found the time to be a 2-time WWE Tag Team Champion. Believe it or not, one with Shawn Michaels on the first run, and one with Dude Love on the second. Did you guys want to discuss that briefly before we get on to the?
I'm not trying to dismiss it, but
it's a blip.
Michaels was being a piece of shit at this time, and as talented as he was, Michaels was injured when it was convenient, and then when he saw the double switch at Mania and all that stuff, then Michaels is healthy now, he's got to come back, and so Michaels fucking interjects himself and whatever. I feel that the whole Steve Austin with Shawn Michaels and the tag team shit in 97, it was 97, right? It was 96.
I believe we were in 97, yeah.
Was it?
I think so. Let's see.
I don't.
No, because
it was a little earlier. Yeah, it was earlier.
They fought each other at King of the Ring 97, right? Austin and Shawn.
Yeah, because 96 was 316. So there you
go.
Right.
Yeah. So I view the Shawn Michaels thing as a distraction because Shawn's a fucking cocksucker.
So it held him back a little longer than.
Yes. Because honestly, after Brett, it should have been fucking here we go. But because Michaels came back in, Vince is like, Michaels is my guy. I love him. And like, it's fucking ridiculous. Like I hate Shawn Michaels sometimes. I do. It's so stressful. Like it's so stressful hating him and how talented he actually is. But like just hating him as a fucking person because he's a dick. And like, or was a dick, and probably still is, whatever. Fuck Michaels. And it slowed him down because really after that, the most notable thing is Owen.
Yeah. Well, this
it was actually the Canadian Stampede in your house, and then it was Owen.
I mean, speaking of, and that did happen. So speaking of, things that you hate, because we love Owen Hart, and there's going to be an Owen Hart bio soon, guys, so stay tuned for that. By the way, it's coming. But I have to tell you that this is so hard to discuss. Like, you hate Owen for a second, but you also realize that, hey, not really his fault, right? So let's talk about the match. Let's talk about the botch and the aftermath. I mean,
so our build was, and this should be thrown in there too. In Your House Canadian Stampede was still to this day regarded as one of the best overall WWF pay-per-views ever. And the main event, it was an 8-man tag. It was the Hart Foundation, Brett, Anvil, Owen, Bulldog, and Pillman against Austin, Goldust, Shamrock, and LOD. And they were in Canada. And of course, Brett and the Hart Foundation, it was right when they first kind of formed the Hart Foundation. And the ovation, go back and watch that match. And the ovation for the Hart Foundation is just so like, I get goosebumps even to this day. And Austin was actually, he was booed, but at the same time, people cheered him. Like, and that's how you knew Austin was a fucking big deal still at this time, that he was getting really big because they were still pushing the fight with Brett. But at the end, Austin was so preoccupied with Brett and Brett's family and the crowd that Owen rolled him up and pinned him in this match, which set up Owen versus Stone Cold at SummerSlam 97 for the IC belt. That's how it all happened. So it's an amazing way they splintered it off because, again, the secondary belt, the IC belt, fucking meant something fucking crazy. So Vince and them knew that Austin was getting really hot. And of course, with Brett in the back going, I mean, what do you want me to say about Austin? He's fucking the man. And, like all that. Like, so they were like, okay, let's get the IC belt on Austin and see what the crowd thinks. How long will they really like him? Will they like him as champion? Blah, blah, blah. So like, that's what led into SummerSlam 97, Owen versus Stone Cold. And they get there. Austin gets they're at Madison Square Garden, right? No.
Was it Madison Square?
No, it wasn't Madison Square Garden. Fuck, I don't remember when.
Jesus.
I thought it
Put
was.
It in the machine. Jesus.
Yeah, fuck the machine. I don't remember. But anyway, so it was it might have been like something different. But yeah, it wasn't MSG. I'm wrong. But so, Austin comes out, gets a massive reaction when he walks out, like a true like baby face, like you're over pop, like kind of thing. And unfortunately, this was going to be Austin pinning fucking Owen, nailing him with the stunner, winning the IC belt, run with the secondary championship. So Vincent kind of gave the crowd and see what happened. New Jersey. There you go. That's what I said, right? I didn't say MSG. I said New Jersey. Fuck you guys. And unfortunately what happened in this match is they have a spot where they were going to reverse like tombstone pile drivers. So-and-so would set him up and then they reverse out of it or whatever. They do a little cartwheel and reverse out. No, they would fall forward and reverse out of it. I will defend Owen in the sense that I watched Owen for years before. And if you've ever watched Owen do a tombstone pile driver where you pick the guy up and he's facing you, if you can catch my visual.
Sure.
Undertaker falls forward on his knees, right? That's a tombstone. Owen always fell back in a traditional pile driver on his ass. That's the way Owens always delivered that move. If you go back and look at that, something happened in the translation with Austin when they were working that spot out that night. They were like, oh yeah, and I'm going to do this. You're going to reverse me. We'll get the crowd on their feet. And then you're going to hit me with the tombstone. And Owen was like, yes. But Owen in his mind thought, well, the way I do the tombstone is kind of the way, how Undertaker picks people up in a body slam, right? But then he puts them on his shoulder and then he falls forward on his knees. That's the way Taker does it. But with the way Owen does it is he picks them up on his shoulders to where they're facing him. And I'm not trying to be graphic. I'm just trying to describe for people who don't know. His face is kind of by his balls, like his mouth is right by his balls. I'm really not trying to make a joke. I'm just trying to paint a visual. And then Undertaker would fall forward on his knees. But the way Owen always did it was he picked him up in that to where the guy's face was kind of facing Owen's crotch area. And then Owen would fall back into a traditional pile driver where Owen would land on his ass and do kind of a reverse pile driver, I guess.
Spiking them on their head.
So, yes. So Owen's always done that. I've seen tapes of Owen do that before. But when him and Austin worked it out, I don't think Austin really realized that. So when they were doing the tombstone, Austin prepped for he's going to fall forward on his knees. But Owen actually fell back on his ass in a traditional pile driver, reverse pile driver. And actually Austin wasn't ready. So Owen's head was sticking like 6 inches out from the bottom of Owen's thighs, excuse me. And Owen did a sit down and crushed the fuck out of Austin's head and spine. And I'm normally will say, hey, go back and watch this or whatever. It's a great match. Go back and watch SummerSlam 97. Austin getting dropped on his head. It's brutal.
Austin, an opportunist with Owen Hart now. Let's see what Austin can do with Eamon. No. How about that? Tombstone pile driver. Shades of the Undertaker. Austin dropped right on his head.
And he lands wrong and falls down on his head, compresses his spine, has a stinger, what they call in the business, for a minute, and he's paralyzed. And you really see Owen's panic on his face. You see Owen try to pander to the crowd and try to get them to chant. The match was a kiss my ass match. If Austin lost, he would have to kiss Owen's ass live on TV or something like that. And so, Owen was getting up trying to get the trend, he's going to kiss my ass and all that stuff. But you see the ref talking to Austin. You see Austin, his hands were like up, but his wrists were limp. Like, and you could tell Austin had no control over his body. And like, it's so awful in the sense of like, wow, like he could have died. He could have been paralyzed forever. And he does the lamest roll up ever to pin Austin because Austin was booked to win. And Austin knew at this time, I have to win, right? This is part of my rise of my character. So I know it sounds dumb to people, but in the storyline, Austin had to win. Owen couldn't just beat him because there was an injury and then, Austin get the victory back later. That would not have worked. SummerSlam's the second biggest show of the year. And Austin was booked to win the second biggest title in the company. And this had to happen. Austin had to beat him with the stunner and pin him, and the crowd goes nuts. That had to happen to advance the Austin storyline, the Austin character, and all that stuff. It just didn't happen. And the pile driver hit, and it's the most uncomfortable, like scary thing, one of the most scary things you've ever seen. We've seen, unfortunately, people die in the ring lately in the last 10 years. But I mean, like, this could have easily been that. Austin could have really been a paraplegic.
Crazy.
And not being, it's bad. And it derailed Austin. However, we're going to talk about how it's probably the best thing that ever happened to Austin.
Yeah, no, it's true because he wins that first IC title, but he has to give it up due to injury as well as the tag titles. Though he can't wrestle, what it's pretty much said is he can still hit a hell of a stunner. And this Owen Hart issue that you call it a feud, call it the botch, it led to it. It leads right into one of the greatest feuds of all time.
This is so important. Like, if you think about this, if you think that Austin never got injured at SummerSlam 97, right? Let's go with that narrative.
Sure.
And everything went fine, and Austin beat him with the stunner, and he won the IC belt, and he would fucking ride off in the sunset with the IC title. I'm not saying their plans was for Austin to eventually win the heavyweight belt. It was.
Yeah, that's where I was going. Yeah.
Austin was that hot. He was going to be that guy. But when Austin got injured, he couldn't wrestle. But he got cleared enough to where he can go in the ring and do promos and all that stuff, and he can still do a stunner, which is really funny considering he sits on his ass and it compresses his spine. But yet it was fine. Somehow it worked. I don't know. But nowadays you would not be able to get away from that. They wouldn't even let him in the ring. But so basically he talked to Vince, and Vince is like, well, I'm you've kind of been flirting with me or whatever, and like challenging me, and you kind of been outing me. Brett before that in some promos was sort of outing Vince as the owner of the company, which had never been revealed to us before on TV, that Vince was the owner of the WWF. And so it might have been some slip ups here and there leading up to it years before, but it was never like a part of the storyline. So basically it was like Vince came up with the idea of, I need to get on screen and he wasn't Mr. McMahon yet. It was just Vince McMahon, the announcer. And then it came out that he was the owner of the WWF. So he came out there as the owner, and he told Austin, and this was a Madison Square Garden live Monday Night Raw and in 97. And he was like, I want to protect you from yourself. You shouldn't wrestle, and we're trying to protect you. You keep coming out here. You keep stunning Slaughter. You keep stunning refs. You keep stunning this guy and that guy and this person. But like, I'm telling you right now, we're here to protect you. And then Cuz, go ahead and you say this interview the best. This was one of the most iconic interviews he ever said. And what did he say to Vince?
Well, once again, another paraphrasing of it, because we'll introduce the clip for the fans. But I appreciate the fact that you and the fans of the WWF care. But hell, I also appreciate the fact that you can kiss my ass. And boom.
I appreciate the fact that you and the World Wrestling Federation care. And I also appreciate the fact that, hell, you can kiss my ass.
Nails him with the stunner,
and then he
takes the most
Vince.
Awful bump.
Well, yeah,
in the
it is one of the
world.
odd. But before that, he stunnered Slaughter. He was building up to Vince, and he nailed it. When he did that, Vince knew right there, I have to be a character, and that, because you told the crowd you want Austin, you can't have him. So leading after that, Vince McMahon, the character, started to be born. And he was telling people that you can't have Austin. You guys don't know what it's like to run a business. I do. And he was just playing a heel after that, being like, you don't get it. You can't have a liability in here and all that stuff. So that makes people want Austin more. And so for a couple months, they built it up to where until Austin was healthy, he was able to face Owen Hart at Survivor Series 97. And he beat Owen Hart for the Intercontinental title the way he should have beat him at SummerSlam 97. But what else happened that night in Survivor Series 97 that was very significant?
Ooh, a little screw job, if you will.
The Montreal screw job, which actually inadvertently put Vince's character over even more to the moon. After Brett left and they do the screw job, which I'm sure we'll cover the screw job one of these days. And I don't want to, but we will, I'm sure.
Everybody
talked about to death,
bro.
After that, the McMahon character became nuclear. And so he's just like, dude, who's my hottest babyface? Austin. And boom, there you go. And then Austin and Vince started antagonizing each other. And then we get into 1998.
Yeah, this is perfect. Right into where I'm at. So 98 is where it really gets white hot. First off, Austin wins the Royal Rumble, which gets you. What does it get you, ladies and gentlemen?
Huh?
The title shot. A title shot at WrestleMania. So he gets that title shot. He's good to go. And the next night is where things get really interesting because it's announced that WWE was able to attain Iron Mike Tyson for a series of dates. And on this Raw, it developed into one of the greatest segments ever. Like when WWF or E at this point gets Mike Tyson, like that's like that, you can tell the handcuffs are off. Even Bischoff turned his head on that one and goes, "Oh, that's kind of a big fucking deal. They got Mike Tyson. Okay, now I'm starting to get a little scared, right? I think he always thought he can recover it or win back or or eventually take over for good. And then when he saw Mike Tyson, I think he's like, now I'm not so sure, right?
And leading up to this, not to get on a WCW tangent,
No, go ahead.
They ended up winning the ratings war for 83 straight weeks. That they beat him. And now it's coming to a close, like at this point. In the beginning of 98, WWE, even though WWF was losing the 6 months before this, it was like, Nitro was doing like 4.2 and Vince was doing 3.5. Can I tell you that Raw wishes today that they had a 3.5? Let me tell you what that is. So Vince is losing on cable with the 3.5 and WCW is winning with like a 4.2. Both shows majorly successful at this point. Like, so even though Vince hadn't beat him yet, he was climbing. He's losing, putting up over 3 million households watching a program. Are you fucking kidding? On cable on USA? Like, that's crazy. So, like, to put it in perspective here, like, yeah, Nitro was winning in the beginning of 98, but Vince was gaining major ground and losing, but also losing with major, like, ratings. Like Vince had 3 point something million. That's fantastic. Like that's really good. So they were closing in. It was going to happen. You saw it happening with Austin and the Tyson thing. And then I'm sure we're going to go right into what physically needed to happen. They brought Tyson live on Raw and geniusly from the beginning, Vince made it about his product and his top star, which was Austin.
Yep.
From the beginning, you better not come out here and ruin this for me. You better fucking not. Like, you don't do it. So, of course, when you say that at the beginning of the show, everyone's going to tune in. And they're going to be like, yeah, you better not. I got to watch this now. So they did the whole thing where Tyson was supposed to debut at the end of the night on Raw. And the whole show, Vince is like, Austin, you better not fucking do it. You better not do it. At the end, they get Tyson out there. Vince is out there. He's the Mr. McMahon character that we know, but we don't know he's Mr. McMahon yet because it's just all so new. So he's out there parading Tyson around. He's got security all around him. He's got Slaughter in there and Patterson. And he's like, I got Tyson. He will be part of WrestleMania, blah, blah, blah. Austin's music hits. Austin comes out. Vince geniusly, as the heel that he is, you better not ruin this for me. You better not. Like, God, how great is that? How genius is that? So Austin's trying to get in the ring and people holding him out. He finally gets in there. He gets nose to nose with Tyson. Tyson pushes him. He pushes Tyson back. Fucking people break him up. Now people in the mainstream media are covering that Tyson's on wrestling, but this guy Austin stood in his face and got in his face. What fucking better coverage do you fucking need for your product? It just fucking catapulted Austin into the stardom, and WCW hadn't lost yet, but it was coming quickly after this, like really quick. And that moment is huge for Austin. That's one of the big ones. It ranks right up there with the, WrestleMania 13 and all that stuff and everything. Like him facing off of Tyson and all those photographers at ringside taking pictures for major magazines and publications and all the newscasters that were there for Channel 7, Channel 11, Channel 4, Channel 2. They all covered this. And it was big news that Tyson signed, but this guy, this bald guy with the goatee named Austin came in there, flipped him off on live TV and pushed him, and people were nuts. And Vince never lost sight, though, that this is a wrestling angle. So from the beginning, it was always about Mr. McMahon versus Stone Cold. Even though he got Tyson, it didn't matter. The bread and butter was Stone Cold and Vince.
I respect what you done, Mike, but you're out here calling yourself the baddest man on the planet. Right now, you got your little beady eyes locked on the eyes of the world's toughest son of a... I could beat you any day of the week, twice on Sunday. Do I think you could beat my ass? Hell no. Do I think I could beat your ass? Why, hell yeah. I don't know how good your hearing is, but if you don't understand what I'm saying, I always got a little bit of sign language, so here's to you.
Whoa! Whoa, here we go! Tyson and Austin! All hell is broken!
Absolutely genius. The man wrote the book on, at this point,
All good
WCW
shit.
was just, all good shit. All good shit.
And there's a lot of good quotes in that little interaction with him and Tyson. You call yourself the baddest man on the planet. Well, right now, you got beady little eyes locked on the world's toughest son of a bitch. And then the
he just
I don't know if
it's
you're
all about Vince. I don't know what happened to Vince, right? Like it was all about like we have to get our product over. Tyson's only going to be here for a couple months, but when he leaves, our product needs to be better for that. And it was and it was great. And what else are we going to cover after this, Dave?
Well, basically after that, because you obviously know that Mike Tyson's dates are going to be limited, like we talked about, but one of those dates is going to be WrestleMania 14. And basically we have Austin facing off against Shawn Michaels. And everybody thinks because Michaels is more of that corporate boy, everybody thinks that that's who Tyson's going to side with. That's the way it was going the whole time. Didn't necessarily happen. So even though Austin and Tyson are feuding in the beginning, it's actually Tyson that comes in and gives the fair shake to Austin finally. I can't tell how many times Austin's been screwed either for real reasons or for kayfabe reasons. And finally, like you said, the baddest son of a bitch in this fucking federation wins the title from Shawn Michaels, and the Austin area is now off and running. This is where everybody's just losing their mind.
But they still didn't beat WCW. WCW still had them until April 13th, 1998. I'll never forget this. I remember watching this live like it was yesterday. And I kept track of the ratings war at this point because the internet was kind of I had the internet at my house and all that stuff. And some of the dirt sheets were converting to internet so you could see the ratings. And Raw was inching closer every week. They were getting close and close. It became, Nitro would win 4.3 to 3.9, and it was getting really close. And at the beginning of this Raw, geniusly, they announced they had a face-off between Austin and Vince, and Austin's world champion. And Vince is like, you want to fight me? You got it. And Austin's like, I'll beat you with one hand tied behind my back. Yep. So from the beginning, it was a major commercial to the last, the main event was going to be Steve Austin facing Vince McMahon, who we've all seen now in many matches, but back here, never competed in the ring ever. This is insane. So now you see the Vince McMahon character really getting developed. And then it was like, by the way, Austin, I'm going to take you up on that offer. You will have one hand tied behind your back when you face me tonight. So it was like we knew the whole 2-hour Raw was being hyped. By the way, at the end of the show, McMahon and Austin, with Austin one hand tied behind his back. And that was the way they did it. And that was the first night that they beat Nitro in 83 weeks.
Not calm at all. Oh, here we go. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yeah, come on, Stone Cold. You've shut your mouth off so much. You feel froggy. Why don't you jump? Austin with that very...
Monday Night Raw beat Monday Nitro for the first time in that length. It's. I remember when I watched that show and I was flipping back and forth. I flipped back and forth, baby. And I remember I flipped back, and when I was by myself when I watched it, and no one will believe me, but I said this to myself. What an amazing build. When they said at the end of the night that they're going to face each other and Austin has his hand tied behind his back, in my mind, I was like, this is the week. And sure as shit, the next day when I woke up and the ratings came out, WWF Monday Night Raw finally beat Monday Nitro after 83 weeks of losing. It was crazy. It was crazy. Yeah. And it was close. I'm making up numbers right now, but it was so close. It was like a 4.4 to a 4.2. Like it was fucking super close, but it was like, think about both promotions, how many viewers they were getting at that time. It's insane what the Monday Night Wars were and how much both companies were getting people to watch them and flip back and forth. It was this amazing time that if you didn't live through, I feel sorry for you. And I know you can't help when you're born and what you're born into, but like, I feel sorry for you. The Monday Night Wars were fucking phenomenal. It was adrenaline every single week. It really was. And even when WWF was losing, it was adrenaline every week. And it was like great TV, and you saw fails and you saw successes, and but this here was just like, it's history. It was Austin hitting the stratosphere, and the character Mr. McMahon being his villain, and like, it was just so brilliant. And I'll stop talking, but it was so good. So good. All this.
Well, just to speed up the clock a little bit, there were so many things that went down, once Austin was champion. So Raw the next day, McMahon's like, "Is it going to be the easy way or the hard way?" And Austin finally says, "No, we're going to go my way." He hit another stunner, right? Then you get the new corporate champion ruse. He comes out in his little suit and his little tie, and we all know what's going to happen. But we're still excited to see it. Once again, another stunner. Then he's working with Do Love. And he actually, due to all of Vince's interference all the way through, Austin finally loses the title to Kane in a first blood match. What pay-per-view was that at, Jess?
It was King of the Ring 98.
King of the Ring 98. That's where Austin finally drops the title for the first time. So, well, what's
that's where
interesting,
Mick Foley got thrown off the cage by the Undertaker. So yeah.
It's so crazy. So that first blood match, you're like, but then you realize, we got Undertaker.
But the next time on Raw, Austin wins it back from Kane.
He wins it right back. Yeah.
Pops a massive rating, and the crowd. Oh God. Go back and see that Raw the day after King of the Ring 98 and 98. And God, Austin pinning him, the crowd went fucking nuts. It was awesome.
And he holds that title until Breakdown, where the title is actually vacated, and we have the whole Bang 316 going down. There's even Rock v Austin in the same freaking month. There's so much to talk about here. Hopefully, we really get to the meat of it. So let's get into that. So that whole month is pretty hot, right? He holds that till Breakdown. The title's vacated. We talk about him basically dominating Vince throughout the entire show, threatening to hurt him and shoot him and all that. And then you got that first Rock v Austin match all happening.
Well, it's and they, we skip past it because we're just talking about the legacy of Steve. But
sure,
at the end of '97, they feuded for the IC belt, The Rock and Austin, and they had a great match at In Your House DX in December of '97. They started back then, And again, it's so much like. We're going to skip over some stuff here in this Austin era, and I hate to say it, and I really at this point I am feeling it's going to be a part 2, but I mean, like, it's just so many things started at once because they were trying to beat WCW and they were trying to just find their voice and do things and find, okay, that worked great. Let's capture that. And so many things happened at the same time. I mean, The Rock rose at the same time, not as big as Austin. Austin started rising before that, but I mean, like, The Rock started coming up as a heel and being really appealing to the crowd and all that stuff. And they feuded for the IC belt at the end of '97, and people don't remember that. And it was great matches. It was good, really cool shit where Austin drove the truck down and backdrop fucking poured needle on the windshield and all this crazy stuff, like, so not to rewind you back, but I mean, like, there's so many great shit that was happening.
No, it is tough to catch it all. You miss out on those feuds too. So it's quite impressive. You've got all that going on. And like I said, we want to speed it up a little bit. We get into that 99 Royal Rumble where Vince is still kind of, pushing his executive buttons. He actually gives him a special drawing of what number, Jess? What does Vince draw for good old Stone Cold?
Number one.
And it's kind of fun too. McMahon actually wins the Royal Rumble in this match, but since The Rock is already champion and that's kind of his guy, he gives up his shot to do the title. He's like, I'm going to vacate my title shot. And then what people forget is that there was a commissioner at the time, and that was Commissioner Shawn Michaels. He actually gave that shot to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Go ahead and give me the what's going on there?
No, I just see Shawn Michaels makes me vomit.
Oh.
Continue.
And we got McMahon and Austin going head-to-head for the title shot at St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Go ahead and talk about the match.
That was 1999, February, right?
Yeah. Yes, and there's a debut there. I know there's some things we don't like about that, but let's discuss it briefly, and then we'll get into.
It was the debut of the Big Show, which is notable for sure. But it really shows that, like, up until then, the character Mr. McMahon had been throwing actual wrestlers in Austin's way, and it worked. But finally, when they faced each other, actually, St. Valentine's Day Massacre didn't get a great buy rate. It wasn't terrible, but it didn't get a great buy rate because once you finally get McMahon and Steve in a cage, you know, one-on-one, Austin should beat the shit out of him, right? And that's kind of what happened and all that stuff. And it's just so there was no really build. It's funny because Hulk would face McMahon. And yes, one fan, I'm fucking forcing Hulk into an Austin episode. Fuck you. So it would happen later at WrestleMania 19 when Hulk would face Vince. It actually didn't spike a huge buy rate either. And it's because when you finally get Vince in the ring, even though every now and then he would get in the ring, you've created this over years, decades. Wrestling has been this fake great athlete against great athlete, right? So when you finally put Vince in there, the guy, when you finally get to the end, it's this cowardly Vince who was the old owner or current owner, or he was almost like a manager figure, Vince McMahon. So when you finally get Vince in the ring against Austin at February and St. Valentine's Day Massacre in the cage, you know, Austin better beat the shit out of him, right? And he did. And Vince took a couple cool bumps and all that stuff or whatever. But the main event, you know, the main thing of that match was the debut Big Show. But I mean, like the same thing with Hogan and Vince in WrestleMania 19. It didn't spike a big buy rate because people were just like, well, I mean, even though Hulk's old, he's a wrestler and you're not. And Hulk better beat you, right? Like, and so it's just kind of, it always became that when Vince finally got in there. It never drew huge because it's like that. I don't know. What do you do?
Well, the chase is over. You know,
the chase is over. So I really believe in '99 and St. Valentine's that's when it ended. I mean, yeah, the Vince and Austin feud carried on after that, but at the same time, it really ended right there. He finally got his hands on him. Right, that was the whole thing. You finally get your hands on Vince, and he beat the shit out of him in steel cage. And yeah, Big Show did debut at the end or whatever to try to continue it, but really that it ended at that point.
Yeah. And that's where, you know, like I said, jumping ahead again, that feud is kind of over. They still play it off.
It's not over, but it is. Like he finally got his hands on Vince.
You're coming down the hill. You've climbed the mountain. You're coming down the hill to that point. So at that section, you know, once the debut happens, then we get WrestleMania 15, and we got Austin versus Rock. And I know it's a really good match. Maybe not the great match, but it's a good match. Austin now is a 3-time WWF champion.
He beats The Rock
at WrestleMania 15. Yep. So, and then shit gets crazy here because he's trading the title with The Undertaker a bit. He's becoming CEO. It's kind of hard to keep up with the average fan.
This is the Russo era, baby.
Yeah. So it is. It's a swerve.
Before in October 99.
Sure, I understand. But, you know, can you briefly discuss the CEO storyline and the title changes that went down before we get to Triple H and the Alliance?
I don't know. I don't know. It was just all shit to try to advance the storyline. And once Russo got a hold of all the stuff before he left for WCW, Russo really wanted to do like Swerve Bros and all that stuff. And I know Vince had the final say and all. I'm not trying to blame Russo specifically. But I mean, like, just, you know, they in 99, they really, after he got his hands on Vince at St. Valentine's Day, like it was really over. And, you know, they were trying to, excuse me. God, I got the goddamn hiccups. They try to groom other people and all that stuff. And it's just like, they were really just trying to make Austin ride. Austin was their guy, right? But in the meantime, Rock was huge and Foley was getting huge and all that stuff. And like, you know, so I think it was just they were using Austin to try to already get new people over. That's what they were trying to do in 99.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, they were major hot. They were real hot, right? Because like WCW just fucking died in 99. Like they were no chance of winning the rating war and all that stuff. So WWF was firmly number one in 99, just firmly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So I got a question for you, cousin. This one, I'll lay the backdrop for you a little bit. This is where Triple H and the Alliance starts to come in from that 99 to 01 era. So we know that Austin and Triple H and Mick Foley basically are doing a three-way tag match, right? So my question for you, because this is what's in a lot of bio work, and I know Jess and I have already talked about it, so I want to get your opinion. Do you think Austin really just flat out refused to drop the title to Triple H? And was he right? If so, was he right in doing that? Because what everyone says, well, he's not big enough to take me on yet. So basically Mankind's going to win the title offhand, and then he's going to be that transition to Triple H winning that title, which is what happened. That was the transition champion. You know, and also we do know eventually we get Austin off TV. This is kind of why this is happening. But what do you think about that? Why wouldn't you just let Triple H, you know, just go over completely?
I don't know. I mean, because usually Austin, you know, I mean, at least from what you hear, like he usually doesn't have a problem, you know, putting people over. So
as long as it makes sense,
yeah,
is what he's always said.
Yeah. So I mean, it's really hard to know as far as what goes on backstage, and you know, if there's issues, you know, other issues that we don't know about. I mean, if Austin is still running wild, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's kind of conflicting because, you know, Austin himself has always said that it's better for him to be chasing the title. So I really don't know. I mean, it's hard. You know, he's the biggest thing since Hogan now. You know, he's running wild and he's going, you know, crazy, and everyone loves him. And at the same time, it's like, why wouldn't you want to build up that next heel, that big heel that, you know, put, you know, someone else other than Vince McMahon to chase after. So I don't know. I guess I'm kind of torn on that one.
Yeah. And
there's good sides, you know, arguments for both sides, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and especially too, we all know Austin's going away to repair his neck in hindsight that Owen had damaged 2 years prior. So
true that. So I guess
really,
he should have maybe then.
All this stuff could have gotten him off TV, but instead they do the title change and then they have him get hit with the car, and that's what puts him off TV. Why couldn't they just have Triple H kayfabe, injure him really good, you know, and a freak thing, pin him, and then he comes back and fuse. I mean, that's all hindsight.
And I should have
right?
used that more. Yeah, I should have used more. And then at that point, I would say, he should have probably just went with a storyline kayfabe injury or whatever. That probably would have been better. But you know, I mean, I guess you could still say that's still a classic
as
moment.
Jess would say, right? This is the swerve, right? It's all swerve.
Yeah,
you know. So
I did it for the Rock.
Yeah, so they have the car hitting him. We don't know who did it. It kind of goes cold for a while, and then Austin's gone, right? So he doesn't come back until April of 2000 at Backlash.
He's out almost the entire year of 2000.
Yeah. So he's at Backlash, and he interferes in the Rock to Triple H versus Triple H, and that has Rock become the new WWF champion. And then at that point, it's revealed that Triple H was behind the whole car hitting on Austin. Basically, he paid, was it Rikishi? To hit him with the car, that kind of thing.
What is this? Wait a minute. Good God Almighty! For God's sakes! That car just ran over Austin! That car just ran over Austin!
I did it for the Rock.
And he said, it was me the whole time. I was behind the whole thing because I wanted to keep you out of the title picture, because Triple H really, by his character, felt threatened by Stone Cold. Like Stone Cold could do anything at any given time, hit me a stunner from anywhere, and my title's gone. So he really was trying to keep, you know, by the storyline, trying to keep Stone Cold out of wrestling completely. And that's where Triple H and him get into a feud. The game is getting most of that feud, you know, is getting most of the good side of that feud. He's pinning Austin at No Way Out in 2001. It sounds like a bad deal. Only one thing, though, just a little caveat. In January of that year, so just a little bit before this, Austin actually wins his third Royal Rumble, which sets up once again the Rock v. Austin, which is
because he won a world title shot.
Yeah, and he won his world title shot. So he's setting up Rock versus Austin at WrestleMania X7. And this is just, I mean, probably unnecessary, but a lot of people really like this match because I don't think anybody expected it. It's one of the closest things to the Hogan heel turn, you know, as far as, oh shit, I didn't see that coming. Right, that was crazy. Like, with I hate to bring that again, but it's close.
Whoa,
yeah,
whoa.
Settle down.
You need to calm down with that statement.
Yeah.
First of all,
let's talk about it. Talk about
WrestleMania 17, Rock versus Austin was absolutely the whole WrestleMania to this day. To me, this is my opinion, is the greatest WrestleMania ever. WrestleMania 17.
We know.
It's fantastic. And the Rock versus Austin WrestleMania 17 was their best match of their trilogy for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. But the Austin heel turn was awful. And to compare that to Hulk it's nowhere near the same. Dave, if someone fucking
I didn't
flamethrowed you right now,
I didn't
I'd be
say
like,
it was
well, he kind
good.
of deserved it. Like that is ridiculous. Like,
oh my god,
it's not even on the same level. Oh my god, what? That's not even on.
I'm trying to tell you what I'm trying to tell you. I didn't say it was any better. Like in the aftermath.
No, you said it was like Hogan.
I even said no. Listen to me. I even said that
we're gonna fucking rewind this.
It was the most shocking heel turns. Like you never expected it. Just like Hogan doing his heel turn at Bash of the Beach. What I didn't say that the aftermath was any good because we all know in hindsight that heel turn was not only unnecessary, it was kind of stupid. He was so adamant about becoming a heel, though. We all know Stone Cold. I gotta be a heel. That's where I gotta go now. It was
shocking, but not as impactful as Hogan.
Exactly. Yeah, it's as shocking, but not as impactful. That's what I'm trying to say.
Shocking from the term, or from the
that it actually happened.
That it happened, and the fact that he joined Vince in that too. You know, the guy that he's been feuding with the majority of his,
nobody saw that coming.
But nowhere near as an impact as Hogan turning heel and joining the NWO. I mean, that just, as far as impact, that's way above that heel turn, Austin's heel turn.
Absolutely.
I needed to calm you down for a second.
I'll calm you down, you son of a bitch. God damn. All right. So let's talk about that heel turn that only a few can compare to. Right before the match began, it was suddenly announced that the match would be a no DQ match. Then actually during the match, Vincent comes down. We're like, oh, there comes Mr. McMahon. And I think most are assuming that he would screw Austin again, so he's gonna work with The Rock.
That's actually what I thought watching it.
Yeah, that's what everybody thought was gonna happen. Oh, he's gonna help The Rock because The Rock's a heel, and everybody loves Stone Cold.
No, The Rock was face this night. It was face versus face.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's what I mean, but still it didn't matter because Vince was he hated Stone Cold so much that he was gonna take care of him. So, and it couldn't be further from what actually happened. So, basically, The Rock was prevented by Vince twice to pin Stone Cold, and then he basically hands Austin a chair to hit The Rock, which is why the no DQ rule is so important. And he pins him and takes that full-on heel turn with his fifth championship run. He takes that heel run to the limit, even teaming up with Triple H to cheat The Rock out of his rematch opportunity. Where was that at, Jess? I was trying to figure that one out, where they cheated Triple H. I'm sorry, they cheated out The Rock.
I think it was on Raw.
But do you remember? I can't remember where it was at on Raw, like what city they were in. I was trying to remember.
I don't remember that, but it was I don't think it was a cage match. It was Austin versus Rock in a cage match.
Yeah.
And then that's when they showed the alliance with Triple H and whatever, because Rock was leaving to film a movie. So they had to do something, which again, them knowing all this, turning their biggest babyface heel, knowing that The Rock was going to be gone for 6 months. Why would you put him with Triple H? You had your two biggest your two biggest stars in the company.
Power trip, right? The little tag team.
Yeah, that's what's coming up now.
Again, you had that great moment with Jericho and Chris Benoit and all that stuff, and they beat him in the tag match. But really, Jericho and Chris Benoit hadn't developed their major characters yet. So you at WrestleMania, you knowingly aligned those two and you turn Austin heel. Okay, that's risky, but all right. But then The Rock is going to be gone. On Raw,
so who's your big face now?
After, I don't remember, or the week after, they had a cage match and The Rock was gone. So they teamed Triple H up with Steve Austin, not turning Triple H face, which they should have done. It should have been Triple H being the face against Austin and McMahon.
Oh yeah.
But they didn't do that, so they put those guys together. And why would you do that? Why would you knowingly turn Austin heel, knowing that The Rock was going to leave the next night for months to film a movie, and then knowingly put Triple H with Austin?
The second part I can explain, but the first part was because Austin really wanted to be a heel. He really pushed that persona. That's what he wanted, and it almost feels like they were trying to fit their storyline around it as if Austin wasn't.
No, I know
he.
I totally agree with you on that one, but I know he does. But God, what a bad choice to turn Austin heel in all that, in those circumstances. You're going to lose The Rock for months. Then on top of that, you're okay, cool. Who's going to be Austin's, rival? Triple H, right? No, we're going to turn him heel and put him with Austin. What? Why?
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, that makes no sense. Like, so they really fucked themselves over at that time. Like, that's why the heel turn didn't work.
And honestly,
it might have
worse.
worked. It might have worked if they had a good face in mind, but they didn't. They didn't
have anything. And it gets actually a little bit worse because they form the Power Trip team. They actually become tag chaps. They beat Undertaker and Kane, but then they have to scrap it because this is when Triple H tears his quad muscle. So even that backfires too. It's just
it was a bad storyline on top of it, and then fucking Triple H is out now.
Yeah, and then he gets out. So, and the funny thing is, you're like, well, okay, Austin has to ditch the 2-man Power Trip. I guess that makes sense. So what do we do? We got to replace Triple H, and this is where, and I know we talked about this. We might even get in a little fight over this. It's a pretty good replacement in Kurt Angle, and I'm not saying it for. It wasn't like it was a good replacement for Stone Cold because Stone Cold should have never been put in this position. But if you were going to have this evil, like trifecta of superstars, you got Vince and then you got Stone Cold, on this heel run, and then you put Kurt Angle into it. And this drastically changes the venue of how wrestling goes because Kurt Angle, I don't think anybody thought he had this in him. Where he's tagging along with Stone Cold. He's kind of on his heels all the time. Him and Vince buy a cowboy hat, and then
those are classic segments.
Like, where's my hat? Yeah, and it's a baby hat. Yeah.
The Angle helped kind of take, because at this time WCW was done. Vince already had bought WCW.
Yeah.
So now they're all on their own, and they're trying to do this invasion angle, and they're trying to turn Austin heel. Triple H gets injured, and then they don't get me wrong, these vignettes with Angle with the small cowboy hat is super funny, and everybody remembers them. But it didn't do anything to further the fact that we needed a solid face to take on Austin.
That's right.
Which they botched up just turning him heel to begin with. But it ended up at SummerSlam that year, Angle beating Austin for the title and turning Angle face in a great match. Don't get me wrong. That was a really good feud. Yeah. But the problem is you have a lot of things working against you at this point. WCW's done, so you have no competition. Arguably, all of 2000, WCW wasn't really a lot of competition. But the fact that you had another wrestling show on a different channel was still always competition, even though it got really bad towards the end. It didn't matter. It made Vince put his best foot forward and put out his best product. After he bought WCW, he had no motivation. And then you turn your biggest star heel when your other biggest star, Rock, is going to leave for 6 months or whatever. Like, it's just insanity. And
then your other face heel turn ends up tearing his quad, and then you put Angle with him as well. And, this all gets halted due to injuries and other items. When I'm talking about what gets halted, there were even feuds at this point for Austin with Benoit and Jericho. But basically, Chris Benoit has to have neck surgery, and Jericho just kind of moved on again. So that even gets botched up. So
not only did they fuck up the invasion angle, but you have all these injuries happening everywhere, which couples the fact that you shouldn't have turned Austin heel to begin with.
And this is why the angle gets.
It combines with the big, they just fucked up the invasion angle. This starts the downturn of wrestling. It peaked. WrestleMania 17 was like to me, WrestleMania 17 was the greatest WrestleMania for a lot of different reasons, but it was the final we won stamp on everything. And then after that, it went down, just down.
Yeah. So as the storyline pushes through, Austin sees Angle as a threat to his championship, and he just did not like Angle. He thought he was annoying, and he refused to team with him. So this forces Vince to ask for the old Austin back because of the invasion angle they're trying to face. They want the old Austin, so Vince does not, quote unquote, lose his company like NWO kind of destroyed WCW. So there's these alliances, and Vince asks.
And on the alliance, it was Stephanie and Shane facing Vince, basically.
Yeah.
Austin basically stuns every member of the alliance in the ring, and that leads him on that face turn. Now he's finally, supposedly, going to help lead against the alliance. And this is the Invasion pay-per-view of July of same year, right? And Austin leads the WWF team against the alliance. What happened, Jess?
Austin turns heel.
It's
Again,
just so
Turns against
crazy.
Vince.
Yeah, it's just like, and this is, it's so odd, yeah, because he stuns everybody and he's the old Austin of old, but then he just goes right back to this weird heel angle again, and he feuds with Angle for the WWF Championship. So I think they knew they had something with Austin and Angle, and they knew it was going to be good, but I feel like it was rushed and it was forced because of all the injuries and all the things that happened, people leaving. They put themselves in a bad spot. They put people in positions where, oh, okay, I've got someone I can run aside for face in their mind, and then everybody gets hurt, and then everybody leaves. And now you're like, damn, the one person that could have been the face is working with Stone Cold at this point. So they're forced to churn it, and then they got to churn it again. And this is really, I think it's really difficult for Austin's career because we all know in hindsight that it's winding down to a close here. And it could have been so much better. But people still remember it in a fond way, right? So, Austin sends Angle, he turns heel again, he feuds with Angle for the championship. Austin would
Angle
actually
beats
lose.
him.
Yeah, he lose to Angle and an Angle lock at Unforgiven. But he had an out because his hand, 2001, but his hand was on the rope. And he won that title back in a triple threat with Angle and Van Dam. So, he just keeps that's that last little trade for that 6th title. Vince even attempts to strip Austin of that title after Survivor Series, but Ric Flair returns. He's co-owner of the company. He's the manager of Raw, and he gives Austin his title back, and that turns him back face once again. Like it's heel face with this guy all the time. This kind of starts that just quick where nothing really seems to build anymore, and it spreads to other wrestlers, I feel. And then eventually it's time to unify the WCW title and the WWF titles. Austin actually loses to Jericho in a series of events, sparking a feud with Booker T.
Well, at SummerSlam of 2001, that Angle beats Austin.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So he beats
That's
Austin.
Because right leading up to that, that's when Angle drove the milk truck down and did the whole beer truck thing, but it was with milk, and he sprayed them.
Yeah. You knew the Angle was on the rise because he was using the milk truck to the dirt
they're
truck.
trying to like copy what made Austin famous, but now Austin's the heel. It just didn't. Don't get me wrong, nothing against Angle.
Yeah.
I love Angle, and he did a great job, and they had a great match at SummerSlam 2001. But
Absolutely.
The heel Austin did not work out. Bottom line.
No, I totally didn't. So they should have left it where it was, where people can love him and people can boo him, but everybody's buying his damn shirt. When you take him heel, you remove a big, proportion of that. So that's kind of what happens. I mean, we know that Austin gets it back, right? And then Ric Flair returns and gives that title back, even though Vince is trying to strip it. So then you have a whole bunch of crazy events again, but this is where Jericho unites the titles. And there's a fun feud with Booker T. The stuff that they do are hilarious. Talk about the matches, the church, the bingo hall, the supermarket. Yeah, they're hilarious, right?
Grocery store.
Not the produce section.
You want some oranges? You want some oranges, son? Get up,
Fucking great. Oh my God. That's like, I love pro wrestling when, like we always say, when it emulates the sport. But if you're gonna put in comedy skits, do it this way. Do it how Austin and Angle did it. Do it with Austin and Booker T. At least make it funny. Like those skits with Austin and Booker and Austin and Angle, that I don't think I've ever laughed harder at wrestling comedy than I did when all that was going on. As much as it didn't help.
Behind the scenes, it really showed that Booker could go.
Oh my God.
And he knew entertainment.
Yes.
And that Booker was willing to play
Yes.
along. Like it really helped Booker's stock.
Booker
in the
was
company.
great in that and all those. It was fucking amazing.
And of course,
amazing.
Austin in the background saying, "Yeah, Booker gets it. He's good." Like,
and
that
I
helped a lot,
loved.
too.
You remember leading up to the supermarket beatdown, showing Vince and Ric Flair in the sky or the luxury boxes, the suites or whatever. Watching and just Vince's facial reactions when Austin was catching up to Booker T. All of that, just all that was fucking great. It was funny, so funny.
Yeah. It's good stuff. I mean, we're winding this down a little bit. We're getting closer to where Stone Cold is definitely getting closer to the end. Let's talk about the final feuds in 2002 to 2003. So just briefly, NWO feud, like it, hate it. I felt like Vince just wanted to bury it. That's why he brought it back. What do you think? The Scott Hall debacle.
As far as Austin was concerned, it was awful. Because, everybody, I think, like we talked about, we had a Hogan versus Flair episode. Everybody was Hogan v. Austin because Hogan was on WCW at this point. Whereas, like before, it was fair to compare Flair and Hulk because Flair was NWA, WCW, and Hulk was WWF, and who would win coming up together, Now it's funny that Hulk still is a part of it, but now Hulk is in WCW, part of the NWO, and Austin catches fire in 97/98. And now you're just like, well, what would happen if Hulk fought Austin? Now Austin's the second coming and Hulk's on the NWO on the other side or whatever. They both were born in the WWF, really, as far as their major characters were concerned.
Sure.
So, what's going to happen? So you get Hulk finally in WWF and the crowd actually responds really positively to Hulk. At first, nobody really knew that Hulk would be embraced when he came back. And then he came back, the crowd actually started cheering him. And so Vince right away said, it's Hulk versus Rock. Because they're really the guys. Like Hulk wished he could be the Rock, right? Hulk wished he could have the success in wrestling that the Rock did and then be a successful movie star. Hulk never got to be a good movie star. All his movies sucked. And he just couldn't. But the Rock did the Scorpion King, did Mummy 2 and all that stuff, and he was Rock was becoming a really big movie star. So he was leaving and coming back to wrestling, coming back at that point. So it made perfect sense that actually Hulk and Rock should face off. They're the ones that really people should have been clamoring for, and not Hulk versus Austin. So it was awkward because when Hulk came back, you would thought it was going to be Austin, and then when he got poked at the Rock, you're like, yeah, it should be the Rock. And then now you look at Austin, you're like, well, wait a minute. Isn't he the guy? Isn't he the guy that was going up and he helped WWF beat the NWO and all that stuff, which was led by Hogan? Like how did that not happen?
And he gets kind of like the schneid with Scott Hall in that main event.
And he's unhappy. And this starts Austin. First of all, injuries are catching up with him, and he's unhappy with the fact that he got put with Scott Hall at Mania.
But I know we've talked about this just off of the podcast, and I know we both agree that it's actually a good thing that they never wrestled for so many reasons. It never would have lived up to the hype.
It would never have been as good as Hulk versus Rock.
Yeah, they're too similar. It wouldn't have worked. They're too similar.
We got to see Hulk and Flair not work out.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, and that's why we call Vince a bit of a genius in that era, because he saw it. He's like, "Ooh, this isn't going to work," and he walked away from it, which is crazy to walk away from. So you almost think like, here, he learned his lesson too. He knew that probably, okay, well, Austin, Hulk Hogan sounds great, but will it be great? And he's like, no, it won't. But Hogan Rock, here we go.
But at that time, you got to figure Austin was coming off a 2001 that was shitty, a failed heel turn. They turned him back face and then heel real quick. And then it's just always a mess. 2001 was a mess after WrestleMania 17.
And then
I think Austin was injured. Injuries were starting to catch up. Even though he had surgery, his injuries were catching up with him quickly again. And then he was mad at creative, and that really led to bad stuff in 2002. He did not. Yeah. He liked Scott Hall as a person, and he thought Scott Hall was a good worker, but he just felt that I should not be in the middle of the card at WrestleMania 18, even though he didn't want to lose to Hulk. And I don't think Hulk would have lost anyway to Austin. I'm sure Austin would have beat him.
Yeah, that's all rumor. They both refused.
It was a whole political thing with Hulk and Vince and Austin, and that's what kind of turned it to The Rock. And so I think Austin realized, like, he got mad. He's injured. He's on the road all that time. He busted his butt. He broke his neck for this fucking company. And then he gets shit on. And basically it's like, well, yeah, Hulk's going to face Rock, and they're pretty much going to be the headlining match for the most part. And you're going to face Scott Hall. He's like, wait a minute. Like, I fucking led you to win the ratings. It was me and Tyson. It was me and you. It was all this shit. And I don't get Hulk. Like, so he was mad, because you want to know why he was mad? Because it was a comparison. He was the second coming, right? He was Hulk number 2. And so he's like, I'm better than Hulk. My period was bigger. I'm a better wrestler, all this stuff or whatever. And
I made more money.
So I should have got Hulk to beat him and to show everyone that I was the best, but yet I don't get that opportunity. So I think it hit all at once. He was like, fuck, like they really bumped me to the side. They really kicked me to the curb. That's what happened. And
there's two
they
things that
weren't
come
wrong
up.
though. They weren't wrong. And I understand Austin's point of view, and I get it. And I really do understand Austin. I don't fault him for being mad at all, but it just happened that way. And like, yeah, he got the biggest star since Hulk, that helped them beat Hulk in WCW and win the ratings, like all that doesn't get that guy, doesn't get the, I'm going to beat Hulk, right? That's the ending of this war, truly, is me beating Hulk, right? No, it's not. It's Rock. What the fuck? Like, and he's injured, he's tired, he's grumpy, he's pissed, he's, he
even, and at this point,
he was drinking heavy, he was drinking really heavy and all that stuff. And like, it all became really
at
bad.
this point, due to what he quotes as exhaustion, this is where his first no-show comes into play. But he does choose Raw in his comeback. And then there is the Bite This interview, because I'd like you to play the segment that we talked about for, where Stone Cold kind of goes off, and you can hear them trying to steer him back, and he ain't having it. So if you can play that now, that'd be great.
Bottom line is everything sucks. I'm not happy with the direction Stone Cold Steve Austin's going. I ain't happy with the direction the whole company's going. I think the writing has been pretty substandard.
Yeah, so that is where people started to see that Stone Cold was this was getting more real. He's definitely unhappy. And
internet started becoming a bigger part now of everybody's lives. So you started hearing reports of wrestlers being unhappy behind the scenes, which you never got before.
Yeah, that's right. It's just everything starts to leak, right? And then Eddie Guerrero gets hired back to try to feud with Stone Cold, but it doesn't really pan out the way they wanted to. And then we get into the major no-show where he literally, the quote is, he took his ball and went home, because he was supposed to wrestle Lesnar like in a semifinal, not even a final King of the Ring match, and lose to Lesnar, who was
on Raw,
not even on a pay-per-view, with no build-up. So I do understand where he's coming from, but I think they all understood without telling Austin that he was winding down. I mean, that's how they felt, whether you like it or not. And everybody loved the Stunner every single night, and it still moved on for a decade after, and that's great. But Brock Lesnar becomes that second coming of Stone Cold, or the closest thing to it, and he becomes the youngest WWF champion pretty much ever. I don't think Orton broke that record, did he? Ever, right? And still,
Orton did.
So Orton was younger than him. So he's basically the second youngest champion. Yeah. So but Brock is that first person to win at that young age and really start to put things together. And I think Austin wasn't ready to let it go. And
it was the same thing, at this point, it's appropriate to note that wrestling was moving a million miles an hour. Even though WCW was gone, it had SmackDown, it had Raw, it had, their Sunday show, it had all this stuff. So it was moving a million miles an hour. Even after WCW was bought and it was gone, they were developing the brand split at this point. They hadn't hit it yet, but later this year, the brand split was going to happen. And so they had so much talent and people brought over. It was just starting to happen. So it was the same thing the Hulk felt, in 92, when Vince is openly going around, even in 90, when he was going around going, Warrior's my next champ, and like all that stuff. And like, it was basically Vince saying to Austin, like, yeah, Brock's my guy. And, we got to go that direction. You know what I'm saying? And Vince is, nobody, everyone, when they're in that spot, can shit on everyone who came before them. Yeah, they were too old. They didn't know how to get out of the way, and I pushed them out of the way. But then you don't realize, like, that's going to happen to you eventually, right? Like, you don't think that. So when Austin was on that ride and all that stuff, like, he never realized, like, I'm the guy, right? I'm the guy. Then finally, in 2002, when Vince is like, yeah, Brock's going to beat you in, like, a minute. Like, he's going to win the King of the Ring, and he's going to be my guy eventually, later this summer. Austin was like, what are you talking about? I'm done? And Vince is like, oh, you're not done. You're probably not going to win the title for a long time. And Austin was like, yeah, fuck you. I'm done. Like, fuck you. Like, it's the same thing that happened to Hulk. But wrestling at this time was moving so fast. And this was right after the Monday Night Wars, like a year and a half later. People hadn't even like really processed like how the war ended, what's happening, right? Like, it's all moving a million miles an hour. Yeah. So in 2002, he's finally realizing like, oh my God, like, wow, yeah, I'm done. This is it. Like they're pushing me out. Wow. I was the young guy that was always like, move over, old fuck. And then now finally, like,
now I'm the old fuck.
Yeah. Now they're like, get out. Like, you can barely move your neck. Get out. Like, and it's like, what? Like, how could Vince do this to me? Which is the same thing the Hulk was saying in 1992. Hulk just was smarter. Not smarter. That's wrong. That's wrong for me to say. I don't really mean that. I mean, it was moving slower because there was only like 4 pay-per-views a year, 3, and like there were syndicated shows and Raw hadn't hit yet and like all that stuff. And so it was easier for Hulk to be like, well, I'm out of here. I'll make my own shit. Like, Austin didn't have time to do that. It was just, you're going to lose to Brock. Now. Well, I'm not going.
That's right.
What do you mean you're not going? Like, I won't be at Raw tomorrow. What the fuck you talking about? Yeah, I'm not going to be there. Like, and it was just like, they never really believed him until they got to Raw that night and Austin never showed up. And they were like, I guess he's not really coming. And that sucks, It sucks that hit him because his career was really done then, even though he did come back and he had the retirement match against the Raw. Not retirement match. He never announced it. It ended up being at WrestleMania 19. His retirement match was against The Rock, but it wasn't announced.
Yeah.
But
it was a good match, but it wasn't WrestleMania 17 caliber. And he maintained a low profile until late 2002. And then him and Vince kind of resolved their differences and we get the matches that we're supposed to get. Right. So, and then from there, you got him on contract from 03 to 04, and he's basically like I just said, like
WrestleMania 19 was him versus Rock Part 3, and Rock goes over.
Yeah,
and nobody knew except for Austin and probably a select few that was going to be his last match, like his real serious last pro wrestling match. I mean, I think he returned after that and he fought Bischoff and all that stuff, and it was whatever, it was gimmicky.
Well, that's the thing. But, I mean, he's the sheriff of Raw, and you basically get a stunner every Monday. What did you guys think of that?
Well, I mean, before that, like he was not healthy going into WrestleMania 19, and the night before he was on the treadmill and his legs were shaking. He couldn't stop them shaking. And he also started having weird heart palpitations and got really odd and felt really funny. So he actually got put in the hospital the night before Mania 19 in the emergency room, and they thought he couldn't go. They were testing his heart. They were trying to. Turns out he just overdid the energy drinks the night before and all that stuff. I mean, you got to figure on top of all his major neck injuries, his major nerve injuries. So, I mean, he couldn't stop his legs from shaking. Like that was the normal thing for him. He just overdid it the day before on Red Bulls and just fucking pounded Red Bulls all day because he had press, he had workout, he had all this stuff. Yeah. And just that night, his fucking body just gave out on him and he started fucking having heart palpitations and shaking and couldn't stop his legs from shaking even more than usual and all that stuff. So he went in the hospital, but he checked out like that the morning of Mania 19, still made it, still wrestled his heart out. And that was it. And you watched Austin walk up the rampway at the end of Mania 19 and he kind of said goodbye to everybody. And you didn't know at the time that it was goodbye, but you looking back now, you watch and you're like, yeah, he was saying goodbye.
Yeah.
It was over.
Sunday, March 30th, Seattle, Washington, WrestleMania 19, along with 54,097 here, will never forget what we have just witnessed. The Rock in Austin turned it on. They give it all.
At least we got another year of stunners.
Right. He was Raw general manager or sheriff or whatever you want to call him. And he had a lot of cool shit where after the cameras went off, he used to ride his quad all around and fucking drink beers. And he would steal JR's office chair. Because back then, I think now they have the commentary booth at the top of the ramp, right?
For Raw.
Back here they did too, and it was JR on the King. And so after the cameras went off the air, Austin would go up and take his fucking chair and fuck with JR, make everyone laugh. And he would get on the office chair at the top of the ramp and crack 2 beers open and scoot himself down and roll all the way down on the office chair while he's drinking at the same time and crash into the ring apron, and he would laugh and beer would fly everywhere. And he did that for a while. It was good fun shit. It was after the cameras went off the air, but on a lot of his DVDs you got to see him do that stuff. And he was just having fun, I think he knew at that point. I think it sucked the way he left, took his ball and went home, quote unquote, and all that stuff. But I think the fact that he lost to The Rock on his last night was fine for him. I think he really understood that. And I think at the end they said, after Austin got pinned or whatever, The Rock hung over him and you saw him visibly talking to Austin, and the ref came over and Rock pushed the ref away. And The Rock wouldn't say what he said to him. He's like, if Austin wants to tell you, he'll tell you. And Austin said he whispered in my ear that he loved me and he thanked me for everything that I ever did for him. And like, he pretty much told Rock, like, he told Austin, sorry. The Rock told Austin, thank you for everything you ever did for me. Like, you helped make my career. The fact that you worked with me made me bigger and all that stuff. And like, yeah, it was really cool. And so I think he ended it the way he wanted to. He didn't want to end it when he did, but I think the way it ended, I think Austin was fine with it, which explains why he never came back to wrestle actively ever, not even for one more time. And I think that was always in Austin's head, and he said it on his podcast and many other people's. Like, I never wanted to have a final match. I'm satisfied. We want it selfishly.
Yes.
Right. You know, when we see him on interviews now in good shape, we're like, oh, he's coming back. But I mean, like, honestly, like, we never wanted it. We wanted it selfishly, but we knew it was the right thing for him not to do it. And he never wanted it.
Legacy.
He was super happy with ending it at Mania 19 with The Rock. He
got emotional in that biography too when he said what The Rock said to him. He got choked up.
Yeah. No. Yeah, it was so. I mean, he came back and he did the characters. He was the Raw general manager, and that was fine. But to him, he knew my in-ring career is over. I'm totally fine with it. Like, the match with The Rock was the way I wanted to end it. You know,
and that's what he wanted. I think he wanted that last main event at WrestleMania.
He's one of the few guys that's never come back. Really, just left and said, yeah, like I said, he came back against Bischoff and he fought some stupid match against Bischoff. But everybody knew it was a.
But he does it anyway. He does the sporadic appearances after 04 where he comes in every once in a while and stuns somebody. It's just the way it is. But it's never really been the same, of that 0304. It definitely never was the same of his actual run where he could go. So all in all, we're talking about, guys, here's what we're talking about. And there's probably more accolades you can list here. But what I see a WWE Hall of Famer. I see 19 championships over his career. I see 6 WWF titles. And I see 3 WrestleMania main events. What do you have to add to that, and what do you have to say about the career of Stone Cold Steve Austin? Cuz hit it.
Obviously, my favorite of all time. Man, I don't even know how you put that into words. I mean, the biggest thing since Hogan. He's the guy. He influenced, just like Hogan came in and put wrestling on the map and, broke through the barriers and got into pop culture. I mean, Austin, he did the same thing. Great. You can go down a list and you can say he had great matches. He was a great influencer in wrestling and in pop culture. Some of the greatest promos ever. And just overall, like, I don't know, man. He's like the complete package. He literally is the total package as far as a pro wrestler goes. So, and I don't think, and we were talking about this in the previous dark match sessions that you heard the week before this episode gets released. They always try to duplicate and imitate, but they will never be another Austin. Just like they'll never be another Hogan, they'll never be another Rock, they'll never be another Austin. And to me, he will always be actually the greatest of all time for me.
It's funny because we just talked about that they try to copy Austin. And it seems so artificial and stupid. Yes. Like, Austin became the next Hulk by not copying Hulk at all.
Exactly.
And so funny, like, the next Hulk or Austin, even if you want to call it that, the next big deal or big thing,
you can say the next big,
the next big star that's going to capture the casual fan and the media and all that stuff, the pop culture. We'll never copy Austin and we'll never copy anybody. It'll just be something that's organic and that fits today's vibe, today's atmosphere. And, what do I say? I loved him when I first saw him, and, to see him, nobody knew in WCW that he would, even when he first went to WWF, nobody knew that he was going to be the second coming of Hulk Hogan. Think about that for a minute. Think about everything that Hulk did in the 80s and 90s and like what he meant to pop culture and being a household name and what that means to becoming a household name, how big you truly get, how famous you really are in the United States of America when you're that stature. He became that. And he did it in an era that was edgy and that was crazy and all that stuff, but he fit perfect and he helped force it. And, but on top of that, like, more than Hulk in that sense, Steve Austin was a great professional wrestler. And he was a great promo. So was Hulk. But I mean, he was a great promo where, again, if you don't put Austin in your top 10, at least in top 5, because there's so many really good people on the mic, let's be honest. But I mean, like, to say that Austin's not in your top 5 or top 10 is just a crime if you say that. I'm not saying people do say that. I'm just saying that's nuts. But Austin was a great technical professional wrestler, and he understood like how to wrestle and do well, and he was more mobile than Hulk was ever, you know. But so I mean, Austin was, seeing him come up and seeing all those things that we talked about, the getting dropped on his head, but that somehow being the best thing ever, you know. Even before that, the match with Brett, and even the Survivor Series match before that with Brett and Austin 316 and all that stuff. Like, I mean, God, like, I don't. Dave, there were so many lucky times, or as Dave says it, you know, opportunity met preparation, or whatever Dave said. I don't remember. It was so long ago. It was like an hour ago.
Luck is where hard work meets opportunity.
Yes. And that's what I said. I swear to God, that's what I said right now. And so, but I mean, like, when you see that, like, how many times did that happen? Triple H had to be punished from the curtain call. You know what I mean? Like, so many shit had to happen, like, for him to, just his rise. He never would have won King of the Ring. If he never won King of the Ring 96, what the fuck would have happened? He never would have said Austin 316. He never would have done it. Like,
if he hadn't been fired via FedEx, so many things.
Yeah, well, I mean, not even that. Just like the luckiness of Triple H not winning, you know, getting punished from the curtain call months, not even months before that, a couple of months before that. And then them being like, well, let's let Austin win King of the Ring 96. How crazy is that? Like, how crazy is that? That is like, Jesus Christ, like that's like all the stars aligning. Like, I mean, going all back and again, now going forward past Brett, you know, Mania 13, just the things with Tyson, the stunning Vince for the first time, the hands tied behind his back and they beat Nitro and everything. Like, God, he was, me seeing him live. I saw him live right before he beat Shawn and right after he beat Shawn at Mania 14. And the pop was Hogan-esque, and it was a star. It was a megastar pop. It was just something one of the things I've never experienced, or very few times I've experienced that kind of a, you know, you're in an arena with like 16,000 people and you feel it and you're like, oh, this fucking guy, like, he's something. This guy is fucking wow. Like, I mean, and he made me laugh so many times. And we didn't even talk about the fucking beer truck and the Zamboni,
that's what I'm saying.
And the bedpan where Mr. Saka was born, and I'll take it from here, nurse. And all that fucking the Corvette with the concrete and the fucking Bang Bang 316 and Vince pees his pants, like, all this stuff, like
the quad over the limo, right?
We couldn't cover it because right now we're at 2 hours and we're almost 2.5 hours, and like, you know, we should have covered that, but like, we just wanted to get like his streamline. But I mean, think of all that, like, God, like, that's television history. That's funnier than most like sketch comedies, right? That bedpan scene is just as funny as any comedian would do in a scene on A Living Color or SNL or whatever. That bedpan scene was just fucking gold, and Foley was a part of that too. But I mean, like, it was just fucking gold. The fucking Bang Bang 316, the driving the beer truck in there, the concrete, like, just fucking amazing. Like, all of that stuff. That's all Steve, man. And he did it with Vince. Don't get me wrong, he did it with Vince too. So you got to give Vince credit. But those guys, they were enemies on screen, and one couldn't have done without the other, you know. And it was so, and Austin knew what he was doing. It wasn't that Austin got lucky. He was that good, and he knew what he was doing, and he accepted that top position and that fucking, you know, household name role. He accepted it, and he fucking excelled at it. And every week he did something new and different and special. And, you know, God, everybody knows who Austin is, right? And everybody talks about him. But really, when you talk about him like we have for 2.5 hours, you just like, you forget really how good he was. Even though people remember how great he was, you just really forget like how great he was, and like what a good pro wrestler he was. I will always go back to that. He is such a good pro wrestler, and you could put whatever definition on that you want, but he really gets how to be a pro wrestler. Even before the Austin character took off, the Stone Cold character, Steve Austin is just such a great pro wrestler, and he gets it. He gets it. We always joked before about what's it, you know, he gets it. And that's his legacy, man. Like, he just, like, what do you say? Like, Jesus Christ, like, he took us on a fuck of a ride, didn't he? Like, for the whole time. Like, good God. What do you say?
Without a doubt, man. One of the best rides ever in wrestling, and you never knew how it was going to end. But you always knew there's always going to be a stunner somewhere, and that's what you always dialed in for every.
I know a lot of people can put Rock up there too, and
of course,
Rock at this point is more famous for his movie career, I think, than his wrestling career. But at the same time, and I think that's what Hulk always wanted to be. But really, when you think about it, if you really think about it at this point, let's be honest, you could put The Rock as a wild card, but the two biggest wrestlers ever, as far as star power and mainstream media and household
butts
name
in the seats
is Hulk and Austin. That's it.
And being more committed to wrestling, I think Hogan and Austin.
Rock is huge. Rock is huge, but Rock, left in 2002. I think is when he started leaving and then coming back for. And I'm not shitting on The Rock at all. He's amazing. Rock is amazing, and he deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore.
He'll have a legacy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Rock is fucking huge. And just big. People to this day say Rock might be the biggest wrestler ever when you think about the way he is now in
stardom.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
He's a huge movie star. He's one of the biggest movie stars ever. And as far as action is concerned and all that, everyone knows The Rock. And so, you could say that, but as far as pro wrestling, if you want to go back to the roots, Hulk and Austin are the two biggest ever. And that's it. There's been no one after. Who's there been? The Taker's been the longest longevity, but as far as household name and what they did for the industry and the way Hulk led, whatever into the 80s into the stratosphere, and then Austin led, the Attitude Era into the stratosphere and beat WCW and had all those iconic moments with Tyson and Vince and all this stuff. That's it. It's Hulk and Austin. And you can have the separate debate of who's better. That's fine. And there's points and counterpoints everywhere. But those are the two guys, those are the two guys. If you're a wrestling fan, those two guys are the only two guys that's rare air that have ever been up there that high, besides The Rock. But again, I explained why he's a wild card. No one's been after, because wrestling's kind of declined slowly since that time. You've had the Lesnars and you've had the Cenas and you've had all that stuff. And I'm not discouraging John Cena or Lesnar or anything like that, but you just, the CM Punks and all that stuff. But wrestling was mega when Hulk was the man, and it was mega when Austin was the guy. It just was air that those two guys really the only guys that could ever share. You could love the Guerreros, you could love the Benoits, you could love the Angles and all, and that's all great, and the Flairs, and you totally are justified. But as far as that rare air, think about that megastar, that fucking, it's Hulk and it's Austin. That's it. Really?
Well, there you go.
Right?
There you go. I'm with it.
And Hulk is better, yes, but I had to.
As always, you can reach us via Instagram at O.W.P 2019, SoundCloud at Our Wrestling Podcast, YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel, or download Wrestle app at no charge to you. Join us along with other great podcasts of the day. This is Dave, Jess, and Cuz with the O.W.P.
You motherfuckers better listen to this show. It's 2 hours and fucking 31 minutes. Fuck you. Listen to it. Good God. Take some time. You have 2 hours, right? You have 2 hours.
Listen to it while you're driving to work or something.
Yeah.
All right.
Right?
I was going through my bag in the back. It's funny. I was going through my bag in the back, and I couldn't find something. I lost something. I went in the back looking through my bag, and I found a can of whoop ass, and it had Hulk Hogan's name on it. You're damn right. It's a good night to be up here today with all these legends, and